you don't when you're at the combine, you felt like that 15 minutes just wasn't enough and you wanted some more information. And then there's another series of guys you bring in that didn't get invited to the combine. So you kind of like them to some degree, but you have no medical on them whatsoever. So those guys have to come in because there's just no medical on them. So it's a combination of different combinations of reasons of why we bring guys in, but they're super beneficial for us.
Let's go next to Jesse.
Hey, Sid, I'll have a follow-up too. Hey, Brett, I just wanted, with Rashid's kind of unknown status right now, how, if at all, does that change or affect your guys' draft and who you might take?
Yeah, I don't know if it does, just because I think we have a lot of needs, and I think it's one of those things that you go into every draft. I mean, you can look at our roster, and I think short of quarterback, um, maybe linebacker, but I think there's needs on the offensive line for sure. I mean, um, you know, guard center depth, competition at left tackle, receiver, there's a need. Cornerback, we just lost Snead. We do have some good young guys. We do have Najee Johnson coming back. But the corners are hard to find. We could probably throw safety in there too, because I think we really like Shamari Connor and Cook and Reed. So, I mean, look, I think that it's one of those scenarios where I think there's a lot of positions that would make sense for us. And again, you start at the O-line, D-line, and receiver position, but it's a long season, and depth is super important to us. And also, guys' contracts do run out, and I think anytime you get a player that you think can come in here and challenge for a starting position right away, I think you go in that direction.
Yeah, you kind of let me to this one. Situations change every year. A couple years ago, you guys had lots of draft capital. Go up and get Trent McDuffie. How likely do you think a trade up is this year, just given your overall depth and the draft capital that you have?
Yeah, it's just kind of weighing the options, and on one end, there's probably I think there's 16, 18 guys this year that we have as first round grades. You factor in some quarterbacks there, so and then some maybe some teams that go in different directions that are contradictory to what our board has. So you figure 16 to 18 names, 4 quarterbacks, maybe 5 quarterbacks. I mean, there could be a window there where we have an opportunity to get a guy, and then it's just weighing, the cost, because if it is a corner or an O lineman or receiver, we're probably going to give up the opportunity to draft that other position later in the draft. So is one guy that you have a first round grade on better than 2 guys that you maybe have second, third round grades on? It's just kind of weighing that formula for us. And I think that's where it comes down to, just the value of that guy that falls. And if he's one of those guys that you really have as a top 10, top 12 pick, I think you up and do it. Like Trent McDuffie's situation, I think if it's one of those guys, I think we'll certainly be aggressive, and hopefully we can find a trading partner. But I also think there's some depth in round 2 there. So, I do think there's opportunities to add players that come in and push for starting positions in rounds 2 and 3 as well.
Let's go next to Nick Jacobs.
And Sydney, I'll have a quick follow-up. Brett, for you, rough estimate wise, do you know how many guys you have on your board?
I wrote that down. I knew someone was going to ask me that, because I never know. I just see a bunch of names up there.
Right.
I don't like count them. I sort of just move them around, and I have them in like pockets. And but I was walking in here, I said, someone's going to ask me exactly how many guys I have on the board. So it's 221, which is a lot, but you'd have to come in here and be with me one day to see how I process this, because like I have guys in the 6th or 7th round on my board, but I always know that we'll never get to the 6th and 7th round. So the total number of boards, total number of players on the board is 221. But in my mind, there's kind of like a line right there, and those guys in 6 and 7 we keep on the board, because that's where I want to work down on free agency. And so I know where I'm going. As soon as the draft's over, the guys that we had on the board at 6 and 7, again, we'll have plenty of numbers. We'll never get to them, but that's my free agency board, and that's kind of how we work through that.
And then my last question for you, each draft is unique, has a unique characteristic to it. Like 83 having the 5 quarterbacks in the first round. I know a couple of years ago, you thought there'd be a 1,000-yard rusher in the 7th round. For this draft class, what do you think it's gonna be remembered for down the road?
Well, gosh, that's a good question. I'm not sure what it will be remembered for. I think it, obviously it'll depend on how these, where these players go, and how successful they are, and what teams strategize to do different things. One interesting perspective that I did find kind of going through this is just the NIL effect. So, typically when you're working through the fourth, fifth, sixth round, there's always interesting prospects and small school guys, and but I think it's what you're starting to see is these fourth, fifth, sixth round prospects are a little older because they're staying, and some of these underclassmen that get third, fourth round grades, they have the opportunity to stay in school. And so I don't know if these drafts, and this will be a trend where they won't be as deep as they used to be. So, I mean, if you're a junior and you have a third or fourth round grade and you have an opportunity to stay in school and make money, you're going to go back potentially stay in school. And so what happens is I think the drop off from rounds 3, the cutoff line, I think the availability of young guys with potential that came out early, maybe they would have stayed, they would have been a first or second round pick. Well, those guys are staying now. So I think the drop off numbers are a little bit more extreme this year, and the players are a little bit older. So we have to work a little bit harder to find some young guys with upside that we really like. That to me, I found challenging. And when we were going through the board, it was one of the things that I kind of like just instinctively thought. And then when I checked with our guys, they were like, yeah, these guys are a lot older. And but again, when you have a ton of underclassmen that put their name in, decide to come out, that makes every draft deeper. When guys are staying in, it's going to make every draft a little tougher to work with on the back end.
Let's go to Adam Tasher.
Hey, good morning, Brett.
Hey, Adam, how you doing?
Good, good. Hey, Dorsey would be appalled at you for having 221 names on your board.
Yeah, too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we don't use them all. We just have them up there just for our free agency.
All right. I just wanted to get your expectations on a couple of guys for this upcoming season. Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. What are your expectations for those guys for this year? And Sid, I'll have a second question as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously hoping both continue to improve, progress, and are able to be consistent playmakers for us. And I know Kadarius has obviously had a long history of injury issues, but I mean, he is probably our most talented wideout. Now again, it doesn't do anyone any good unless you stay healthy. But I mean, the kid has always worked hard here for us, and I know he's been down there with Pat, and I think it's just a matter of him staying healthy. And I think if he can do that, he can really do a lot of great things in this offense. And that's one of the things that there's a lot of speculation about KT, but I don't think that we ever stop believing in him. And I think people around the building like him, and it's the injury bug, and hopefully he gets some luck on his side and he can stay healthy and be the player that he was in Florida and the player that we've seen in spurts here. So just hoping he has a good offseason and has a little luck on his side and can stay healthy. And with Sky's always been, mentally tough kid. And, he's still, he had that knee injury last year too. So, to some degree, just these guys being on the field, staying healthy, and then, making plays when their number's called. And the great thing about both these guys are the two guys we really like as people, and they're smart guys and they work hard. Now it's just a matter of them putting themselves in position to earn consistent playing time and then make plays when their number's called.
Okay. And a similar question on Wanya Morris, just what you thought of him when he had to go in and play last year for those 4 or 5 games, and what is his readiness maybe to be an every down starting left tackle if that's what you need him to be this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So I think we were really happy with Wanya's development last year, and I think he showed some signs early on in the OTAs that we were really excited about. Continue that growth and maturation process during the training camp. And then middle of the season there, he got an opportunity, some good, some bad. I think Wanya would tell you this. I think if you look at his body of work last year, I think on one end, you're happy that he was able to come in at the pro level and be competitive. It wasn't perfect, but it also was solid play that I think is a good foundation to build and grow on. But he has to come in here with the mindset that, we're going to look to bring in competition, and, he's got to come in here and win that position. And I think it's his job to come in and be prepared to win that position. And I think it's our job to go out there and find competition, for that left tackle spot. So, I think that there's a lot of promise in there and there's a lot of ability. But certainly I think, it's our job to bring in some competition there and make him earn that and work for that.
And we'll go last to Nate Taylor.
Brett, on the left tackle situation, how much do you prefer, or I guess has the organization, how much do you all prefer position flexibility, having a left tackle who could potentially play right tackle if necessary? And given it's a premium position, I guess how important is it to sort of find that next guy that can obviously play that position for multiple years, given you had left tackles of different guys over the last couple of years?
Yeah, we put a lot of stock in flexibility. As you mentioned, Nate, you even saw that last game of the year when we played the O-line. Coach had those guys playing different positions. Creed played guard, and the tackles swap positions and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that just it kind of illustrates exactly what we think of positional flex. And in game situations, you never know if it's going to be a right guard, a left guard, a center, a right or left tackle that goes down. So position flexibility does heavily weigh into it. There's a lot of guys that, or a lot of O-line coaches would tell you, if you can play tackle, you can potentially play any position across the board. So I think that's why tackle is so premium. You have to protect the quarterback's edge and the blind side, but also typically those tackles are athletic enough to slide inside and sometimes even play center. We saw that with Mitch Morse a few years ago. He was a tackle in college, and he ended up being a really good center. So position flexibility is super important to us. And yeah, and it is a quarterback league, and you got to protect them and you got to get after them. And those tackle positions are always going to be important because they protect the most important player in your team. So if we get an opportunity to get one of those guys, for sure, I mean, it's always on your mind, just like DN and DT. So again, hopefully the numbers work out, and hopefully there's a window of opportunity for us. But I do think there's some really good players in rounds 2 and 3. So just need a little patience and a little luck, I guess.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Veach.
Yeah.
That was Brett Veach talking with the media right there. We'll get into a lot of what he said. We'll talk a little Royals a little later on, because I want to talk on and hit on some of what Brett Veach was talking about right there during the presser as they lead up for the NFL draft. We'll take a break, come back. The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Matt Derrick at 11, Mick Schaefer at 1, Julian Edelman and Ladd McConkey around 12:20. We're going to talk about what Brett Veach said very quickly here because I want to talk a lot more with Jack and Matt Derrick about the Chiefs at 11. Obviously, there's a few Royals things that Jack and I were having a lot of fun with in that break right there as well. So we'll get on some Michael Massey thoughts, some Drew Waters thoughts, some Kyle Isbell thoughts. But first, Brett Veach was talking right there to the media. He had a couple of very interesting nuggets. Again, we'll get in more detail with Matt Derrick at 11. But the most interesting thing he said was the NIL effect. Something that I didn't really consider, which again is why he's a GM and my dumbass is not. The NIL effect in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. He was talking about how the prospects are older. The prospects are saying, you know what, maybe I will stay in just an extra year and make some money here. Why would I go? And quite frankly, we're not talking about all these guys, but some guys can make just the same amount of money. They can potentially up their draft stock. They can stay a year longer and have fun, maybe try and play for a championship. If you're on Georgia, if you're on Alabama, if you're on Ohio State, Washington. Try and make the college football playoffs. These guys are getting older. Mm-hmm. They're staying in college because they're still making money. And if you're not a first round, second round, third round guy, let's say you're a 5th round guy, monies might not be a whole bunch different, obviously over years versus a year. But that's what Brett Veach has found, that guys are staying in college longer, so they're coming out older, and then that makes the 4th, 5th, 6th round, that drop-off more steep. I thought that was a fascinating little nugget from Brett Veach, one that I didn't necessarily consider. It makes sense when you look at a lot of these guys, we're sitting here going, man, that guy's old. He's 24. Mm-hmm. He's 23. He's 24. And that's the reason for the NIL. I thought that was a very fascinating little nugget there from Brett.
There are much more incentives now to stay in college. If it's not even just for, well, let's get one more year of development under your system, you can play at a high level, then you're going to rise in the rankings a little bit. I mean, how old's Bo Nix? Like 25? He's going to be older than some of the guys in the league. Remember that stat they always used to put up, like Lamar Jackson was still younger than a handful of rookies that were getting into the league? Because he came out of college at like 21 or 20 or 21. It was incredibly young. Juju Smith-Schuster was another guy, really young coming out of USC. And I think now in college sports, I'm not saying it's taken away the shine on prospects, but you know how we are as, I guess, consumers of football or any sports in general. The older they get, we're like, are they really that much of a prospect? Like when you have a guy that really bursts onto the scene at 21, 22, you go, man, what do you think he could be at 25 or 26 when he's really in the wheelhouse of his prime? Now it's like if you draft Bo Nix, which he's going to be first round, it's like he's 24, 25. Yeah. He's going to be 27, 28, nearing 30 a couple years into the league. Like he's already past the prospect status.
Well, we saw it with Snead. Because Snead was a 4th rounder, wasn't even a rookie. The 5th round, the 5th-year contract. So you're sitting here going, he came in the NFL really old. You're looking at that second contract. That was, in my opinion, a big reason why you almost didn't want to give him that longer-term second year or second contract, because you're sitting here going, well, look at his age. Mm-hmm. And that's just his first contract post-rookie contract, right? I mean, age has such a big factor on what teams do and don't do. So I just found that pretty interesting from Brett Veach and just kind of getting in the weeds there with the NIL effect. How, it's great for the players in college, but also makes a draft a little more of a steep drop-off, especially in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. Brett Veach did say his board has 221 players on it. He goes, he knew he was getting asked that question, so he had to go and make sure of how many guys were on his board. 221 players on Brett Veach's board. He did say his guys on the board in round 6, 7 that he believes they'll be UDFAs, and that way he can get out ahead and reach out to those dudes. So I thought that was kind of smart, right? Just learning a little the inner workings of how Brett Veach and some of these GMs work. I thought it was, again, just behind the scenes. Maybe no one else finds this interesting, but I do. He goes, typically on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you do call checks. Just calling other GMs and other teams to make sure their phone lines work.
I think there's a lot of games that go on the week leading up to the NFL draft, and Brett Veach has to be near the top of that list.
He goes, casual and hypothetical conversations will be happening.
Just checking. Just having some fun. Maybe
Just
pulling a prank
checking.
call or something like that.
I will say, and it is true, know this firsthand when I work with the 76ers, guys will be on, and this is a little different, the draft compared to trade deadline, but I was with the 76ers during the trade deadline. We saw Brian Colangelo because you could see his phone. You could see when he was on the phone and off the phone. Again, Brian Colangelo, if you know anything about him, he didn't last too long with the 76ers, but they're really on the phone line up until the pick, up until the deadline. I mean, they're right then and there. We saw him, and I forget what the trade actually was, but the trade did go down right at the deadline, and we saw him on the phone up until it. So you got to make sure the phone lines work. You got to make sure you're because they will be using them and making casual conversation up until the last possible minute. I just think it's pretty interesting. Petro was asking about the ability to deal with certain teams, right? As far as, you're the champs. Our team's not wanting to trade with you as much. Brett Veach basically said, hey, we can get them to trade, but it comes at a premium. You're paying a premium, especially in the AFC and especially with teams like Buffalo, Cincy, and the Ravens. The asking price for those teams specifically, they just get a lot higher.
I think we saw that firsthand with Buffalo, right, and Stephon Diggs. There had to have been no thought whatsoever in trading him to Kansas City. And there are rivalries that are built up in the NFL that you're just never going to want to see your player play in that uniform. I think there's a lot of teams in the league that look at the Chiefs' red uniform and go, I never want one of our stars playing for them. Why would you at this point? You're only giving them more fuel, and everybody's kind of waiting back on their heels thinking, eventually the wheels are going to come off here. We don't want to repair them. We don't want to give them a Band-Aid. Baltimore did that with Orlando Brown Jr. when the Chiefs had offensive line damage. And everybody's like, what the hell is Baltimore doing? Even though they're getting picks back, it's like they needed a left tackle, and you gave them one.
I will say, for Baltimore, there, if you want to use it, they got better.
They did.
It worked out very well for Baltimore. That was one of those win-wins. I do think some teams get so, maybe I'm wrong, but you could say petty, where they're like, I don't want to trade with him. But then all of a sudden you're saying, would that have actually made our team better? Are we trying to focus on hurting them or making us better? What's more important? And Baltimore at that point said, we don't care who we're trading with. We want to make our team better. We know that Orlando Brown Jr. is not going to be here. We know he's not going to be part of our team going forward. What can we do to get the most back? If it's trading with a rival, it's still helping us more. So I think there's a fascinating line you have to toe. 3 more quick thoughts before we take a break and come back and talk Royals. Brett Veach was talking about how deep the receiver class was, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. The O-line is good early and then tails off. I wonder if that means a first-round tackle. I wonder if that means a trade up to get your tackle in the first round. Again, I'm not talking alt, but even like just in general, those guys who might go in the 20s. Kingsley. Suamataia, right? If Suamataia, I have to say that for Jason. Well, Jason says his name all the time, and so I was like, I gotta learn, man. If I'm gonna talk with Jason, and Jason's gone, so I guess I have to be the Suamataia guy.
You
right?
are. Yeah. It won't be me.
Yeah. So maybe it's Suamataia. We'll find out. But I thought that was a little interesting tidbit of O-line good early, then tails off. If there is going to be a trade up, that almost leads me to believe it would be for a offensive lineman.
It has to be. I think that's the only position group they would have to trade up on. I thought last year they were in play a little bit for Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma.
I did too.
I thought that was going to be a trade-up scenario. But with this wide receiver group, if nothing happens 20 to 30, they could sit back on their heels, maybe even go day 2 with the wide receiver because we saw the draft board fell last year. All those guys went late teens, early 20s. Like no wide receivers were picked until then, and that pushed back probably a couple of ideas for GMs out there. But if it gets that 30th pick and they haven't taken offensive linemen, they're probably either trading out of day 1 or they are going to take a wide receiver that's fallen a little bit in day 1.
Yeah, because again, there's guys like Xavier Legette, Troy Franklin, who knows where he's going to go. He could go if he went first round or second round. I don't think anyone would be surprised. There's a lot of guys in that range of first, second, bordering the third, where you go, where are they going to be? And I do think you can trade up into the second if you want to get your guy around the late 40s, early 50s too. So, and then the final little tidbit I thought was good defensive line depth later. So he's still thinking about the defensive line, still trying to get reinforcements. Not surprising. I don't think. I would still like to see a little bit of an investment on the interior defensive line. I know they brought the gang back, right? They brought back the Noddies and the Whartons and the Mike Pinnells. I want to see a little souped-up talent with Chris Jones. I want to see someone who can not just be a solid player in the run game, but a guy who can also get a little push up front and get after the QB.
I think you have a couple of edge rushers, too, that are still, I mean, George Karlaftis has already proven himself to be a very reliable edge rusher. But you have two kind of bulk rushers, I guess like bulk rushers, strength rushers like Karlaftis and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who are going to try to go straight at you, win the one-on-one. I would love to see a late-round pick of an edge rusher that's kind of that raw potential. We saw with Josh Kane.
B.J. Thompson, baby.
B.J. Thompson. Tano Passon, like kind of, I would love another late round pick. And even though the success rate hasn't been that high, I still would love to see that dart going on the dartboard of if it does hit and you get this 6'6" long armed freak like even O'Menahue was.
Yeah.
Man, like B.J. Thompson's still incredibly young. We could see him turn into something like that, but that's what I would love to see with the defensive line depth. Not some nose tackle that you're grabbing it in round 5, round 6. I mean, Keandre Coburn last year, I actually thought was going to stay on the team.
Has a city been collectively more wrong? Has the United States collectively been more wrong? I don't remember anyone saying bad pick. Everyone was like, wow, what a steal for Kansas City.
Maybe Darian Kennard the year before.
Okay,
I was convinced Darian Kennard might have been a starter in year 1. He dyed his hair red in training camp.
It was the hair dye that got you. It was the hair dye.
And was only on special teams and then was gone.
We'll take a break, come back talking Royals next with Jack Johnson. The Zone rolls on at Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Flying everywhere.
Papers flying, reminiscing about when, Jack, you were an intern.
Yes.
Do you have an intern name or?
Mm-hmm. Flake.
Flake. That does not sound good. Either
It
you
was
have
'cause
dandruff
it's-
or
no.
you would just not
you
show
would
up.
think that. You would think that also.
Oh,
That's because my
Jack
name
Johnson.
and the song that I've gotten all of my life. I might have said this to you before. You a fan of Office Space?
It's like Michael Bolton.
Michael Bolton.
Why should I change
Why
my
should I
name?
change it? He's the ass. Every day of my life.
Banana pancakes would have been a lot better.
That's the worst one I get. Do I like banana pancakes? Can I play the guitar? F-stop blues. All of them. No.
You've not just dove in and
I was born before he was famous, so it wasn't this direct correlation. But still, people think it is.
I think it
you
is.
think he's that popular?
I mean, he was for a while, yeah. I mean, Dylan, he's pretty popular, right? Like, everyone
It's
knows
a
Jack
niche.
Johnson.
It's a niche.
Yeah, it's not like Kobe Bryant or anything. like
No,
that.
it's not like Kobe Bryant, but Jack Johnson in the early...
It's like two of the most common names, but like you have a big net of reasons why that someone might.
Jack
be named
and
Jack
Johnson is a common first and a last name.
There's a
It's
hockey-
not like
there's
he's
a
a
hockey
hockey
player.
player. He's a boxer.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out. Sterling's very uncommon and Patrick Mahomes' daughter. I'm just saying.
Yep.
I'm
You're
just
very close.
I'm just saying. Yeah, when we talked to Patrick Mahomes, he told me I needed to add a "ma" to my last name.
There you go.
Yeah, pretty close. All right, talking Royals now. Nick Lofton was optioned to Omaha. Corresponding move is going to be announced today. Yet to see anything that I've looked up. Have not seen it yet. We all assume Michael Massey, as Michael Massey is returning from his rehab assignment until it's official, but that's the way it's leaning. And then the other interesting news was same game, Drew Waters was pulled. Gavin Cross was pulled, but Gavin Cross was pulled for injury, so that's not as exciting. Drew Waters, though, you and I were talking, and I think was a little fun. Is he coming up to the majors? And if so, who's it for?
If he's coming up for the majors, I would imagine somebody's either banged up and it's somebody in the outfield. You would hope it's not, MJ Melendez, who, even though he's in his cold stretch, he was one of the more productive hitters in the middle of that lineup. I know for a lot of fans, it's Kyle Isbell, right, because they had the battle in spring training. I'll tell you this, if there's no injury and Drew Waters is coming up and either Kyle Isbell's going down or he's going to the bench and Blanco's going to Omaha, that's pretty cutthroat. 19 games through the season. Like the Royals and J.J. Picollo have raved about Kyle Isbell's defense, and here's another part. The Royals are winning. They're 12-7. This is one thing if they were, 6-13, needing a spark, and it's like, man, Kyle Isbell is unplayable at this point. I don't think he's been unplayable. He's in a bad slump, but I think it's almost this, hey, Drew Waters is really tearing the cover off the ball in Omaha, and we gave Kyle Isbell this chance, and even though it's 20 games, listen, you were one of those players that had to start hot for us to believe that you can be that everyday center fielder. Now, this could also be Waters was pulled, and it could be injury related. That would be, I think, a small chance because both you and I talked about Massey and Waters were pulled at the exact same time. We feel 99% sure Massey's on his way to Kansas City, probably already here. But if Waters is up here and he's in the lineup tonight and in center field, talk about a different mentality the Royals are going with this year.
I would love it. I'd love it because you want to win now. You're looking at the AL Central. It's not great. You're looking at the team right now. It's time to compete. At some point, you can't keep trotting out a dude with a 525 OPS. Kyle Isbell's career OPS is 642. I love when people talk about, well, if he gets to a 700 OPS, that's a big if. Like people love to say, well, if he gets here, his defense is so good. What has he ever shown with his bat that makes you think he's going to get there? Yeah, I would love it if I would love it if I don't know, Michael Garcia could bat 290 and hit 20 home runs. Do we think that's going to happen? No. It's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream, in my opinion, for Kyle Isbell to be a league average bat. He's a great defender. To me, he's a fourth outfielder, but he's not very fast. I know the stolen base numbers aren't bad for him, but he had 7 last year. It's not like he's out here stealing 20, so Dayron Blanco fits more as your fourth outfielder for that exact reason. Drew Waters is faster, switch hitter, more power, takes a walk,
hits the ball harder,
hits the ball way harder. If you look at Kyle Isbell's baseball savant numbers, holy bleep. It's not like there's bad luck involved here. You're looking at this, that's a lot of dark blue.
Dark blue, light blue, powder blue.
Not
Red
good.
for defense.
Red for defense. I hope it is. By the way, Drew Waters is younger. Like I've been, again, maybe I'm the bad guy to talk about this because I'm a huge Drew Waters supporter from the get-go.
Yeah.
I just never believed in Kyle, and so maybe this is me fitting my narrative. But also at some point, you got to try something. You got to try something different. It's not like Drew Waters is this black hole in center field that's unplayable. He's still a good center fielder. I don't get your thoughts here, but I think it's Drew time.
I think that you look at both these players, listen, they both need to be league average hitters. They're that good defensively. Be a league average hitter. I think Waters gives you a little bit more upside there. He also has to prove it, though, too. Right? Isbell had to prove he can be an everyday center fielder. Waters has to do the exact same thing if he is, in fact, on his way to Kansas City.
We'll take a break. We're going to come back. We'll be joined by Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest, chiefsdigest.com. We'll talk more about Brett Veach, what he was talking with the media.
We got an adult in the room.
We have an adult in the room! Hide the beers. Zone rolls on.
free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
Welcome back to the Zone. Sterling Holmes in for Jason Anderson. Jack Johnson still with us. Dylan Michaels behind the glass. And the power ballad man himself, Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. Matt, sing it. Take it away.
I forget the lyrics to this part of it.
You know this.
Yes.
You know.
Oh, yeah. Well, who doesn't?
No, you can sing this. I know you know the lyrics. You're lying to me right now. I've heard you many a time sing this.
I don't know if
you've called me before and sang this to me. Like you.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. How does it feel to be the adult in the room now with Jason gone?
I mean, I'm always pretty much the oldest person in this room when I come in here, but now I feel really, really old.
I thought you were 30.
I wish.
Yeah.
We turned back the clock here.
I wish I was 40.
Wow, looking good, Matt. All right, let's talk about Brett Veach.
Fat don't crack, man.
Can't sprain it. Can't sprain it. That's why Salvi's always there, right? Can't sprain fast. That's why he's never actually injured.
I get injured all the time, however.
Yeah, you did. You had a boot the other time you were in here last week. Is the
boot
boot still on?
Boot. It is an offloading shoe.
It's an offloading shoe.
He needs Nate's scooter.
How'd you do the Nate scooter? How'd you do that?
I got a blister from walking too much. Yeah.
Could have said like turf toe or something. Something a little cooler.
I mean, all my injuries are super cool. I once broke my foot talking on the phone.
How?
My foot, I just felt like it needed to be popped. So I was flexing it, just kind of extending it and everything like that because I thought, gosh, my foot pops, I'll feel great. So I was just kind of flexing it back and forth while I was talking to somebody on the phone. And all of a sudden I felt a pop, but it wasn't the right kind of pop. And I was like, I just did something to my foot, so I need to go.
Athlete.
And it turned
That's
out
an athlete right there.
I had a stress fracture. I think Bo Jackson would hurt something.
You make Kadarius Toney and Sammy Watkins seem healthy. Like
That's fair. That's fair.
Those guys seem like Iron Men compared to you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually I've never had a cast, so I've never broken like my leg or my arm or anything like that.
Just your foot.
I've broken fingers. I've broken toes. I've broken my foot. I've torn tendons and ligaments. So, yeah.
All right, let's keep with Kadarius Toney. Let's keep with the injury prone.
Coming from noted Iron Man Sterling over there.
What do you mean? What have I been injured with since you've known me? Besides occasionally having a bad back, I've broken a finger one time, and that sucked. You get like a little mini cast because I tore some ligaments in there as well. That was not fun.
I mean, I've never actually seen you technically do anything warranting an injury, so that's the other part of the problem.
Well, yeah, I'm doing radio. I'm sitting down. You broke your foot on the phone.
True.
Come
Fair.
on.
At least I was shoveling snow.
What do you think I'm doing in here?
Tendon. Oh.
What do you think I'm doing in here that would warrant me needing a cast?
Nothing.
My point exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll make radio more dangerous. I can have some flamethrowers back here or something.
But to your point, if I can stay healthy, like if Kadarius Toney could stay healthy, I too could contribute to the offense.
Which Brett Veach was very glowing about Kadarius Toney, just saying if he might be the most talented receiver we have, if he can just stay healthy. And I'm sitting here going, dog, he played in a lot of games. He was healthy for a good amount of games. He never once helped the Chiefs this season. What was Brett Veach talking about here? Is this him just trying to, I don't want to say not throw him under the bus, but you also spoke way more glowingly than he truthfully had to do about a guy who, quite frankly, has been a little bit of a headache.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what you hear from this organization, even when the microphone's not on. I mean, I've heard the same thing talking to people. They like Kadarius Toney. I mean, he's not a problem in the locker room. His teammates like him. He is popular in that building. They want him to succeed. Obviously, they made an investment in him, so I think they obviously want that investment to pay off. They'd like to be proven right. So, yeah, I mean, there's a certain bit of, rooting for what they invested in to bear some fruit and give them a return. But they like Kadarius Toney. I mean, I like him as a player, as a person. So I mean, I think that's fairly genuine because, like I said, you hear that consistently. And I mean, to play devil's advocate, was he ever healthy last year? I mean,
Sure.
He had the knee surgery, rushed him back. He was not ready, obviously, for week 1. He was rusty. That showed. And then it was just kind of one ding after another after that, So, yeah, I mean, the guy, it looks like, has had some bad luck. If he can stay healthy this offseason, stay healthy during training camp, go into the season without the, the nicks and dings. But once again, Kadarius Toney has been like the Maserati. I mean, he's a great player, but he's always in the shop.
But great player, I think, is he? Like, we all go back to him messing with his gloves and coming down with the ball one time, but if that's your highlight, you haven't done a lot for Kansas City. Again, I will say the punt returns, that's been obviously fine. But when it comes to Kadarius Toney, do you, one, think he's on the team going into next season? Do you think he's actually on the active roster? And is it going to come down to either him or Sky Moore? Is there room for both?
I mean, the Chiefs have made it pretty clear there's room for both. I mean, the way they can manage their receiver group last year, I mean, even if they drafted 2 guys this year, I mean, they've shown that they're not worried about carrying 7 receivers if they have to. There's bound to be injuries, too. So,
and I guess Rashee Rice, we'll see how long he's out for, too, if he gets a suspension.
Right. And I mean, I'm not necessarily expecting anything. I mean, my expectation if anything happens to Rashee Rice is probably going to be in 25. I mean, I could be surprised. Maybe something does happen this season, but that would be my expectation at least. But no, I mean, I would put Kadarius Toney's chance of making this roster right now at least 90%. I mean, yeah, his guaranteed contract is not much. I mean, it's like 2.59 million, whatever it is. That's a small amount. It's still a little bit of a bite to chew when you've got as little cap room as the Chiefs kind of do have, and as little flexibility as they have. So you don't want to just give up on that. But I think something would have to happen dramatically. Either there's something off the field that happens, just poor play. But I mean, I was hearing your previous conversation. You say, is he a good player? I mean, I look at him and Kyle Isbell, and I have no problem saying Kadarius Toney's a lot better football player than Kyle Isbell is a baseball player.
True, but I also don't want Kyle Isabel to be the starting center fielder. So I thought the most interesting thing Brett Veach talked about was the NIL effect. Jack and I, we were talking about this. 4th, 5th, 6th round prospects, they're now a little older. A lot of these guys are staying in college an extra year because of the NIL. They can make a little money while in college. They're going to stay around a little longer, which then he goes, the draft just isn't quite as deep as you go along. He doesn't know how the trends will eventually even out, but he goes, particularly this year, draft's not as deep, and the players are a little older as the 4th, 5th, 6th round comes along. What were your thoughts on the NIL effect?
Yeah, I mean, I don't dispute what he's saying because I think it is legitimate, especially at certain positions. I mean, I think that there's been some comments about how, like, this year's running back class is not very good because a lot of running backs who could have come out decided to go back to college because they probably wouldn't get a very good high draft pick. Chances are it's probably going to be the same pick next year because nobody values running backs anymore. Sure. So, I don't know if their draft stock's really going to improve, but that was kind of the complaint there. What I see still, though, is, of course, the COVID effect, too, because a lot of the people that, and maybe Brett and I are looking at some of the same players, there are certainly a few players I think you would say, hey, because I'm not sure that the underclassmen declaring was any different as far as the numbers go. I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't know if it's dramatically different, but you probably are and will see a little bit of that continuing because there's no doubt. I mean, if you're a 6th, there's a good chance that at most places, I mean, like, take Cody Schrader. I mean, if he had more eligibility, he'd make more money, probably in NIL money in college than he would as a 6th or a 7th round draft pick or an undrafted free agent. So, yeah, I mean, if you're at a certain place, absolutely, you're going to make more money. There might even be some big stars who might even be 2nd round picks. That might make more money in NIL in college. But to me, you look at, especially in the later rounds, and you look at the players who are available, there are so many 5th and 6th year players left from COVID who are, use that eligibility.
Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is what, 32 years old. I mean,
Him and Stetson Bennett were fighting it out for oldest QB coming out the past
yeah,
couple
I mean,
years.
they make Brandon Whedon look like he was a young pup coming out of college. So I think there's a little bit of that, and that's still working its way through. I mean, how long will we have the COVID eligibility? I mean, I think we got another year of that at least, of some 5th and 6th year seniors. So both of those things are probably having a combined effect.
221 players on Brett Veach's board. Actually, the question was asked by 41 is the Mike, co-host of Matt Derrick.
Jacobs, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fun right there. And of course, Brett Veach goes, I knew someone was going to ask it, so he had to do his research beforehand. 221 players, guys on the board in the 6th and 7th round. A lot of those guys he mentioned were probably going to be UDFA guys.
Right.
What did you take away from the 221 and just the priority free agents that Brett Veach has on his board?
Yeah, I mean, that is actually, I think, the highest number we've ever heard from him. I mean, he's had some numbers that were even like 190s before. Plus or minus 200 is about normal, but I think 221 may be the highest number we've ever heard from him. I'd have to go back and look at all of the answers every year in the pre-draft presser.
Matt, I have one more question going back to Kadarius Toney and what Veach had to say a little bit earlier today. And remember when we all kind of fell in love with the idea of Kadarius Toney being in this offense? It was 2 years ago. And he was, what, a number 3 and number 4 in that offense? And that, I don't want to say explosion onto the scene, but at least good production in the Super Bowl. Of course, the punt return, having a receiving touchdown in that game as well. It made us go in the offseason kind of piggybacking on, he could be a number 1. He's got the speed, the route running ability to be a number 1. So every time he took the field last year, it was, that's supposed to be our number 1. Even Patrick Mahomes kind of backed it up, saying how talented he was. Do you think Veach said this of he's still one of the most talented guys, if not the most talented guy in the wide receiver room? Because the expectation now is he's not a number 1. That's going to be either Rashee Rice or Hollywood Brown. Now he's back to being a number 4, and with his speed, again, the route running ability, catching is probably still a concern. But if that's your number 4, that's kind of why you keep him on the roster, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what he did in the Super Bowl in 57 was amazing. I mean, he was absolutely critical in that. And coming in at the way he did at midseason, I mean, I know there were a lot of high expectations. I mean, my expectations for a receiver coming in that spot are incredibly low because picking up Andy Reid's offense for anybody is difficult, much less to pick it up in week 8 and all of a sudden try to be, I mean, you can't be anything more than a gadget guy. Well, he was a really effective gadget guy in that period of time in the last half of the 22 season. I think last year you saw that, I mean, is Kadarius Toney a number 1 receiver? Does he have the talent? Sure. Does he have the body for it? Does he have the durability, the longevity for it? I think that is a more legitimate question, and that hasn't been proven. And maybe it's even the temperament because, when all of a sudden last year or last summer when they were heaping on that, hey, he can be a number 1 receiver in this offense, it felt like a lot of pressure. I mean, to be asking of Toney in that situation. This year, I mean, yeah, the expectations are lower. I mean, they're not talking about him in those same terms, still building him up positively, trying to build that confidence, but they're not, putting as much stock as just leaning on him as that number 1 guy. And I think that's good for him. I think it's probably good for his psyche. I think it's good for the Chiefs to not try and force him to be the number 1. If he becomes it, let it happen. But right now, just let him go out and play. And if that means he's the number 4 guy and he's getting 35% of the snaps and he just rotates in, well, that might be the best for him and the Chiefs.
Matt Derrick is our guest. We'll get to your ChiefsDigest.com mock draft that you did because I think there were some fascinating picks that you made, a little bit of a trade as well. But one of the things that Brett Veach talked about that made me stop for a second, he was talking about how good and deep the wide receiver class is. He talked about how good the defensive line depth is later in the draft. But he mentioned the offensive line is good early and then tails off. Again, I'm reading between the lines here, but that tells me if they trade up, maybe it's not for a receiver. If they trade up, it's not going to be for a defensive lineman. If they trade up, it might be for an offensive lineman just based on those comments. Am I reading too much into that, and what are your thoughts on it?
That was my thought, and now you're the second person I've talked to who came to that same conclusion. So yeah, I mean, and I thought it was interesting when I asked Brett about.
Was the guy you asked before me smart as well, or was he also a dumbass like myself?
Oh no, he was much smarter than you.
Oh, so good. So
yeah.
I just got lucky then.
No, I mean you're just you're at least you're
on the right path.
You're not falling behind. You're not showing off. You're just right in the middle of the curve there, Sterling. No. You know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
But when I asked him about his interest in trading up for a non-quarterback into maybe the top 10 or top 15, I was kind of amused by the smile he got on his face and saying that they've had that conversation before. That he has to get the owner's approval, and that he's gone to Clark, he's gone to Andy before in the past, and they've discussed going up to get a player. And now I just desperately want to know who that was and why it didn't work out. But I thought that was pretty interesting because there's a couple of offensive linemen that they're available in the teens. I'd go get them. Don't think Joe Alt will be available in the teens.
No, but
I'd go up to 10 to get him. So
who would you go up and get in the teens? Again, we're not saying Alt because I think Alt's going top 5, top 6. I don't think he gets past. Personally, the Chargers at 5, right, and then the Giants are at 6. I'm guessing the Giants also have Andrew Thomas right now, so maybe they don't need a tackle. But I still think Alt's probably going 5th overall to the Chargers. So if it's not him, who would you go get in the teens?
For me, it would be one of the guys whose names I can't pronounce.
Kingsley.
Kingsley
Not
Suamataia.
Not
You're not
Kingsley,
getting no, because Jason's gone and he always says Suamataia because he apparently he found a name that he can pronounce very well.
There you go.
And so in honor of him being out today, I learned Kingsley Suamataia extremely well just for him.
I had kind of done. I've done that as well with a couple of players, and now I make sure. I just call Mitchell AD Mitchell because there's no reason to just go.
It's just
by
AD Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah, just go by his nickname and everything. No, I mean, who's the? It's like, see, here's the thing. I mean, I love Joe Alt because Joe Alt is just freaking awesome,
and his name's easy to say.
And then, well, it is easy to say, but and then there's his dad, so it's easy to remember that and everything. Although I did call him John for I think a couple of months, so. Just make him John Alt Jr. So, but I mean, I wouldn't do it for the middle tier. I mean, you start getting into the J.C. Lathams and the Marius Mims. So those guys, I would wait until the 20s if I'm going to go get one of those guys. But no, who? I mean, tell me here because I like I said, I've ignored the 2 and the 3 best tackles in the draft because I figured the Chiefs just aren't going to go get them.
I'm in the same way. I'm like, what? The Chiefs just aren't going to get these guys.
I mean, to me, it would be a trade up for Joe Alt or bust. So
you have Fuaga from Oregon State. He is 2nd. Futanu from Washington. He is 3. Fashanu from Penn State is 4th.
Fashanu is the one that I think a lot of people have, some crushes on.
Yeah. By the way, like, are we just trying to hurt myself with all these 3 last name Fs, and they're all...
Yeah. And that's why I didn't learn to pronounce them. I'm a terrible, terrible journalist, Sterling. So.
I like Amarius Mims. I can pronounce that. So, yeah, if the Chiefs get Amarius Mims, I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean, bless those guys' heart, and I don't mean to sound so rude and everything like that, but me as just a talker and a typer, wow, I really hate it when the Chiefs, draft somebody that's hard to pronounce and hard to spell and hard to type. I mean...
All right, I do want to get into your draft that you did on ChiefsDigest.com. Are we allowed to get into this?
Sure.
I mean, again, everyone read
absolutely
ChiefsDigest.com. I mean, come on now. But we're also going to talk about it right now. You did have a trade up in round 1, and this was very surprising because if this guy falls to this certain spot, I would actually be in agreement with you. What happened
Shocking.
in round 1? What did you find in your little mock draft here?
Well, and this is why my next mock draft I'm going to be using one of the other simulators, but because I mean every group has their own board that you use, and I with the settings in PFF I even go a little bit over to the public, so it's not so straightforward. The PFF board because their board's kind of squirrely at times to me, but that's just me. But I mean, consistently looking at the mock drafts and everything, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt, and Brett Veach kind of I think alluded this to a little bit, but just do the math. I mean, if you've got 16 to 18 players on your draft board and 4 or 5 of them are quarterbacks that have first round grades, what are the chances one of those players is going to be available at 32? Not good. So if you want a player that you've got a first round grade on, you're Brett Veach, you're going to have to trade up. And that to me, one is the, the blessing in disguise from the L'Jarius Sneed trade, that third round pick from Tennessee we talked about this week. I mean, that thing's just as good as gone in my book, because Brett Veach is going to use it at some point next weekend to move up it when he has to. And I mean, that third pick alone would get you into the mid-20s. I mean, as far as a jump goes. So, that to me was this opportunity. I mean, if you've got a player that you've got a top 15, that's a top 20 player that's all of a sudden available in the mid-20s, you go get him. Now, in this case, I didn't want to give up more than that third. So could I have moved up to, if I wanted to throw in a little bit more, could I have gone to 22? Yeah, but I was kind of dead set. Okay, that third is all I want to give up. So Green Bay was willing to make the deal, moved up to 25 to get Brian Thomas, who I'm not sold will be there, but is the possibility that someone of his ilk, I mean, as far as rating goes, is there. I mean, is one of the top 4 tackles there. And Brian Thomas is a really good receiver. So I mean,
yeah, I think he's almost a clear-cut wide receiver 4. That's
sure
what
feels like.
That's what
yeah.
sort of. I mean, it feels like you have your top 3, then you kind of have Brian Thomas
and
sitting in
by
that
himself.
4 range, and then you get to the pick your flavor.
Yeah, because he might not, and he might not be one of the Chiefs, top 16 to 18 players. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But then again, he might be 19th. On their board.
Sure.
So I mean, he's just in kind of that category by himself, like you said. I mean, it is kind of the top 3, then Brian Thomas, and then about maybe 5 other guys. But that's the thing, is that those 5 other guys are pretty much consensus, second round picks. I'm not sure that anybody has that group after the top 4. Thomas is probably the one that goes back and forth. There's probably some teams that have a first round grade on him, some don't. I can't imagine any of the other receivers that teams have first-round grades on them. I think second round is their ceiling. Doesn't mean they're not going to go in the first round, because there's just so few first-round grade guys for each team. But, yeah, I mean, it feels like, as far as the NFL evaluators go, there's a drop-off and just less certainty, or there's just more questions about the players after Thomas.
Round 2, you went with defensive end Marshawn Kneeland from Western Michigan. Why'd you go with him?
Primarily because the Chiefs have just shown a lot of interest in Marshawn Kneeland. I mean, he's been one of their 30-visit guys. Talked to him some other places.
How much does that mean, though, those 30-visit guys? How much stock do you put in that?
I would say kind of a 60% value. I mean, because like Brett said, I mean, the Chiefs use them in some different ways than some other teams do. I mean, the Chiefs have probably a lot more undrafted free agent player types that they have come in for their 30 visits than maybe some other teams do, because as he said, I mean, they got some guys who were not invited to the combine who come in. I think there's one player that they've got on their board, if I'm not mistaken. Dane Brugler with the Athletic does like just the most incredible job at breaking down prospects. I think he has 401 players on his draft guide this year.
It's insane.
And I think the Chiefs still brought in one player who was not on his board for a 30 visit. But it's because, it's a player who's not invited to the combine. Maybe it did or did not have a pro day, but also has, if there's an injury history, you want them to come in and do your medicals, because in some cases you want a second opinion, even if they were at the combine and they had an injury in college or an injury history, you want to see that and what it's going on. Some players, especially if it's somebody that you think, could be a starter. It's not just somebody you're looking to come in and play special teams, or you think can just be a valuable depth piece, but it's somebody you think can be a starter one day. You want them to come in and see if they know ball. I mean, you want them to be able to come in and see if they can, understand an offense and understand a defense and understand their responsibilities. And even more than that, I mean, it's, because like Steve Spagnuolo says on defense, it's your job plus one. I mean, they want to know that the guy knows what the guy next to him is doing too. So that's the value of those 30 visits. I mean, it's the medicals, and then it's this, getting to go in and see how much these players really understand. They'll get them on the whiteboard and, make them diagram plays and the responsibilities and see if they really truly and can pick up things, and sometimes they've used 30 visits for red flags too. Bring a player in that, they have some concerns about and just, see what's up. With Kneeland, though, I mean, it doesn't appear there's a ton of red flags. A lot of people seem to think that his best football is still ahead of him, that he's an ascending type of player. So even though the production in college wasn't great, he does have a little bit of Mike Dana kind of feel to him, which maybe makes the Chiefs' interest a little bit less. I'm not sure. because he's maybe not right now the best pass rusher in the world, but he's kind of a complete defensive end, in that maybe he's a little bit better against the run than some other guys. He needs to improve his pass rush technique, but he looks like a complete player at least.
Let's get to round 3 before we take a break. You went with Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul from Houston, the tackle, 6'7", 331.
Huge, yeah.
The arm length, which again is massive, 36.25-inch arms. Nuts.
Yeah.
3 times first team all conference. Patrick Paul, do you think he's even there?
That's another player that I would have a hard time seeing is there, but he is a player that if the Chiefs don't go tackle in the first round, I could absolutely see them trading up in the third round to get, because he to me would be very good competition for Wanya Morris.
Would it be too much of a reach to grab him at 64 in your mind?
I don't think it would be at all. No.
Okay.
I mean, and if Nealon wasn't there, I probably would have taken Paul at 64. I mean, that's just because I didn't go tackle in the first round. And what would you be getting in a player like Paul? If one, I think he started 55 games in college. He's got a ton of experience. So even though I know some evaluators who think that maybe he needs a year of seasoning or a red shirt, I look at it and see, wait a minute, I got a guy who's been all conference 3 years in a row. I think he was a team captain twice. Only one of those years was in the Big 12, so lesser competition the earlier years. But hey, if you're first team all conference in the Big 12 and you got 55 games of experience under your belt, I mean, it should not. And all those games at left tackle, by the way, it wasn't like he moved around. I mean, he played entirely left tackle. If that doesn't prepare you to step in and be a tackle on day one, I don't know what else there could be. I mean, unless you played all 55 of those games in the SEC where it just matters more. But yeah, I mean, and what's the upside? What's the downside? Upside is that he comes in, he beats out Wanya Morris and wins the job, and now you got a really good left tackle you're happy with. The worst downside to me would be he pushes Wanya wins the job, he becomes your swing tackle. Maybe he does get the seasoning he needs, and then when Jawan Taylor reaches the point where you can get out of his contract, now you've got a cheap and easy right tackle that you can drop right in there and save some money.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He will stick with us. We will take a break, go through rounds 4 and on with his draft. We'll take a break. The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Welcome back to the Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. I am Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels behind the glass, Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest, and 41 is the Mike. Getting back to what he did on ChiefsDigest.com, which is the latest mock draft. So far, we're looking pretty good. First round, he traded up, and he got Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU. Round 2, went with the little Chiefs pick right here, going defensive end, Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan. Round 3, if he's there, I could not love this pick anymore. That is Patrick Paul, tackle from Houston. And now we get to round 4. This is another one that I think a lot of Chiefs fans might enjoy. That's Will Shipley, running back from Clemson. Running back in the 4th round. I think it might be a little bold for some folks' taste, but at the same time, he seems like he'd be a very nice compliment to Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, he would. I mean, he is he would be. He is a different flavor. I mean, Pacheco is a little stronger, I think, and obviously is a little bit different kind of game. It would be a thunder and lightning approach because Shipley's a little bit more of a speed guy to me. Got great contact balance. That seems to be, and the general, the worst projection that you really read about Shipley is that, hey, if he doesn't become a starting running back, maybe he's a 3rd down receiving back out of the backfield. Well, Chiefs need that too. I mean, if he's the next Jerick McKinnon, I don't think you'd have any problem with that.
By the way, do you think McKinnon is done in Kansas City?
Who knows? I mean, I think he certainly showed last year. He still has a little bit of life in him. I mean, probably he feels like he has more life than maybe the Chiefs felt like that he had last year because they did try to save him for the postseason and they had the injury that kind of really messed things up. I mean, I certainly got the sense from him last year that he wanted to continue playing. He hasn't said that he wants to retire or anything, but he's also made a late decision, the last few years. So
sure,
would not surprise me. And once again, I mean, he is in that kind of the same situation that Donovan Smith is. I mean, if the Chiefs do draft somebody like Will Shipley, if you're Jerick McKinnon, do you want to come back? Because now you're like fighting for a job, and there's no telling you, maybe you're the 3rd guy again, and and they've got Clyde too. I mean, maybe where are you going to fit into that backfield? So, I mean, like Donovan Smith. I mean, if the Chiefs take a left tackle, I mean, does Donovan Smith want to be in Kansas City?
Sure.
No, but does he want to come back if they don't draft a tackle? Yeah, I mean, it could be a good spot for him. So that probably has a little bit to do with the draft. Might have a little bit to do with, Jerick McKinnon is 68 years old and I think would be fine.
Seems low, actually.
It does seem low. Yeah. I mean, he's a dinosaur, as Andy Reid said. But he can still play, but I wouldn't blame him if he just said, I tell you what, call me June 18th when OTAs are over and the mini camp's over, and we'll get a contract done then.
You're telling me a lot of veterans don't want to go up to St. Joe?
I mean, he's willing to go to St. Joe. He just, I don't think, would want to have like 13 practices in May and June that he doesn't have to do, and I wouldn't want to do that either if I had the prerogative.
You got to round 5, and you had a few trades that you made here. What did you do?
At round 5, we were starting to get to the point where at 154, I felt like Brett Veach. The draft kind of petered out. There was a lot of 6th-year guys, a lot of players that if I'm taking them there, they're like 23, 24 years old. Not really excited about those prospects. Look over at the, hey, who's interested in this? There were 2 teams. I think it was Dallas and Washington, or the Giants, one of the others. I think it was Washington, and their next pick was like in the 200s. It's like, nah, I don't want to drop 51 spots. But Dallas was in the 170s. They actually had the pick right next to the Chiefs, so I think that was 174. Chiefs are at 173 right now, so I was able to get that 174 from Dallas. So slide back 17 spots, picked up a couple of 7th rounders, one this year, one next year. That's kind of, hey, Brett Veach can do that. And in this case, I mean, I got the guy that I probably would have taken anyway. One of the things that Brett Veach said today that they need is guard center flexibility. And trading back, getting Bo Limmer from Arkansas was a guy that I would have circled there. One of the better ranked centers, but obviously if you can play center, you can play guard. I mean, he's got some experience there too. So a lot of college experience again. So that's a guy that I wouldn't mind there. 5, the sub 174 was a little bit more difficult. There was a lot of different options, and at that point, I'd be fine if you take somebody that is just more of a developmental project. I mean, Chiefs could go corner there. Wouldn't bother me because once again, as I've said before, you could give Dave Merritt a golden retriever, and he could turn that guy into turn that dog into a nickel corner. I mean, there's no doubt about it in my mind. I mean, he could Air Bud the heck out of that thing. But I went safety there because as Brett Veach, once again, I mean, he rattled off I think he rattled off the draft picks of every one that I made today.
Yeah.
Because I didn't take a corner or a quarterback or a linebacker, which the Chiefs don't really need. But they need pretty much everything else. And safety is another one of those things. They need a third safety. I mean, they brought Deion Bush, but he's more of a special teams guy and depth piece. And remember, Justin Reed, not under contract for 2025. So, who is your next guy up behind Shamari Conner and Brian Cook, especially when Justin Reed's gone? I mean, so I went with Keaton Aladopo, I think is how you pronounce it. Decent player, a lot of production. So, don't know if she's on the Chiefs board or not, but that's the kind of player I would look for.
With Bo Limmer, who you took at 173, I know you're mentioning the guard center combo, the versatility. I know the Chiefs did bring back Mike Caliendo. Is Mike Caliendo still a part of the future of Kansas City? Is he in the ilk of a Nick Allegretti? Where do you view Caliendo on this team?
He could be. I mean, and the difference, and to a degree, is Allegretti was a draft pick, so obviously,
Sure.
You felt better about him starting out. Caliendo was more of a developmental project as an undrafted guy. I think they're comfortable with him, but would they prefer to upgrade there? Sure. But also, once again, you got to look towards the future. And right now, Chiefs don't have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith under contract. You've got Joe Thuney with a $26.9 million cap hit next year. You can save $16.9 million if you don't keep him around for age 33. So you got to consider that.
Where do you land with Joe Thuney? Because I find this an interesting conversation because there's no sign of drop-off from Joe at all.
No.
I know we keep talking about the age, but at some point, guard obviously I think can play longer and offensive line in general. We saw Andrew Whitworth play until he was, 40, 39?
Yeah.
Now, I know he took a little step back towards the end, but he was still damn solid. Joe Thuney has shown zero sign of drop-off. You saw the guard market actually explode this past off-season. While we keep bringing up the contract of Joe Thuney, it's not like it's as crazy as it once was. Do you think he plays it out, or is there a chance for maybe a little slight extension to bring the cap hit down?
There's always a chance of that. Absolutely. I mean, they could move some money around and do that. One of my proudest comedic moments of all time, because Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney is a stone wall in all aspects of life.
Yes.
I mean, and now away from, he actually is, a really warm, funny guy and everything like that. He just doesn't want to talk to interviews or do strangers. And I'm perfect with that because I'm almost as introverted as Joe Thuney is. But I told him I call him Terminator because I believe that he was sent from the future to protect quarterbacks. He's a robot from the future to protect quarterbacks. And he actually laughed at that. So that was like one of the most proud comedic moments of my life. And I got a laugh out of Joe Thuney.
That's impressive, yeah.
But no, I mean we'll see what happens after the pec injury. If that does have an impact. I mean that's really the first injury of his career he's had to kind of deal with.
He had a broken hand and decided I'm going to play through it.
Yeah, I mean exactly. He hasn't had something that's really kept him out before. And the pec injuries are terribly hard for offensive linemen in particular to play through. So let's see. I mean, I'm not expecting it to have a drop-off with him, but probably won't see him as my guest during OTAs, probably see him at training camp, but you're not blocking anybody in OTAs anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Let's say, who has a better chance of being in Kansas City in 2 years? Joe Thuney or Trey Smith? Or are you going to say neither?
In 2 years?
Wow, that
that's
way
a
it
good
takes
question. That's a challenging question.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say this as being one of the biggest Trey Smith supporters and fans out there. I mean, I just love the guy. I mean, he's got a great personality in addition to being a great player, great teammate, all of those things. Great dude, but he's going to be a $20 million player. I mean, that's the way the market is. I mean, you keep Trey Smith. If he has a healthy, good year this year, he's going to get $60 million guaranteed. That's just the way that the guard market's going. Thuney's probably a little bit more affordable. I mean, you got the cap hit that you can negotiate around and everything like that, but at his age, he's not a $20 million player anymore.
Yeah. Are you keeping Creed almost guaranteed, or we're going to see the tradition of the Chiefs? Again, a lot of this is obviously pre-Brett Veach. I think we all say, yeah, they don't pay cornerbacks, they don't pay centers. Well, yeah, we saw the cornerback situation under the Brett Veach model as well, but centers was all prior to Brett Veach coming here. Is he going to be the first center in a while that gets paid in a second contract here?
Well, I mean, it comes down to economics. I mean, I think it's more about that than anything else, because remember when the Chiefs let Mitch Morse walk? Well, it's because they were paying Eric Fisher a ton of money. They were just starting. I mean, I think when they met Mitch Morse walk, they already had Mitchell Schwartz.
Sure.
So they're paying a ton of money to their left tackle and their right tackle. You run out of money, so you've got to go cheap somewhere. So I mean, right now, yeah. I mean, the thing is that if you're forced to choose, you're probably choosing Creed Humphrey because center is cheaper. So if I'm the Chiefs, I mean, one, you can argue that Creed Humphrey, just from a obviously award standpoint, is the more awarded and accoladed player. There's even though I don't have any issues with the medical concerns about Trey Smith long term, you could have that as a question mark because of his past. But yeah, I mean, even if you paid Creed Humphrey top of the center market, you could give him $16 million a year. You're saving $4 million maybe for what you're going to be paying Trey Smith.
And I almost think, maybe I'm wrong here, I think center almost is more valuable, having a elite center up front than a elite guard. I don't know your thoughts there, but I personally believe that. I think the center market is not caught up to the rest of the NFL, while I think tight end's kind of the same one on offense, as far as the weapons, if you will. You're sitting there going, yeah, tight end's very valuable, but the market is just not there. We saw the guard market explode after the tackle market has now exploded. Center market is still relatively down.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's always the possibility that you could talk about moving Creed to guard. I mean, he's good enough to play both spots. So
does that mean you're worried about the snaps?
No, I'm not worried about the snaps because I think that was probably still more to do to some other things that are fixable.
Okay,
maybe a little dinged up here.
You're not
maybe
thinking.
A little bit
You're not thinking Chuck Knobloch.
I'm not. No, I don't think it's. I don't think there's a
the
mental
Rick
block. I don't think
okay.
he's got the twisties
okay.
or anything. No, I don't think it's that. I think it's more about probably a little ding here and there. You lift up. I mean, I didn't play a ton of center. I played a little bit of center enough to know that when you got your eye on somebody across the line and you start peeking a little early, that snap kind of dribbles out.
It's like golf,
So,
baby.
It goes low.
Don't peek.
It goes low. Yeah.
Don't peak.
Yeah.
Take a break, come back. We'll finish up with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. The Zone, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Van Halen, yeah, Sammy Hagar was great. I love Sammy. Love me some Sammy Hagar. He's trying to tell me that the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen was better than the David Lee Roth era.
If I'm listening and seeing Van Halen, I would rather have Sammy Hagar. I'd rather have Sammy Hagar doing David Lee Roth songs than David Lee Roth doing Sammy Hagar songs.
But it's not how it works.
I know, but
Matt.
I mean,
What in the hypothetical?
Jump is the most overrated Van Halen song of all time.
Matt Derrick, bad takes. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and as well as ChiefsDigest.com.
natural food to Midwestern families since 1958. Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
Welcome back to the Zone. Sterling Holmes in for Jason Anderson. Dylan Michaels behind the glass. Thank you again to Matt Derrick. Make sure you check out all his great work, ChiefsDigest.com. Mick Schaefer joins at 1 o'clock. Have some fun with Mick. And then around 12:20, in just about 20 minutes or so, we'll play the interview that I did with Julian Edelman, as well as the interview I did with Ladd McConkey. We'll do the Ladd McConkey interview first, actually. Again, great time talking with both those guys. I learned a lot from talking with Ladd. I learned a lot as in, one, he can be a good and, quite frankly, a very willing returner in the NFL. I also learned that he's not a slot receiver primarily. He played more outside receiver at Georgia than he did in the slot. So I think he was getting pigeonholed into a wide receiver spot that, quite frankly, was unfair. So I talked to him, learned a lot. I think everyone who will hear the interview will find a better understanding, and maybe even some people who want to see Ladd come to KC at 32 even more. I know I'm one of those guys. And then with Julian Edelman, I talked about the similarities of the Chiefs dynasty compared to the Patriots dynasty, some of the sameness, the differences. He was pretty glowing of KC. It was fun talking with him. And we talked about his performances in the playoffs as well as him playing defense. Yes, Edelman played defense against the Chiefs in 2011 and what it was like trying to go up and guard Jamal Charles. So that interview will play again in about a half hour. All right, Dylan, you ready for something fun?
Always. I'm always ready for fun.
You seemed thrilled, man. You seem like you're stoked right now.
I'm just moving things around. So.
I know you're moving. Are you too busy right now to do our mock draft?
No. No, never too busy for mock drafts.
Don't sound so excited, man.
So how many rounds? Just the first round? Or
we're doing
pick?
7, but just with the Chiefs. We're doing just Chiefs.
Gotcha.
I'm not doing all. Dude, we don't have time to do all that. Come on now. We're doing PFFs, simulator. Man, I sounded very country right there. Simulator. We're gonna have some fun with this. All right. I don't ever do mock drafts. This is like the first one I've done all year with me in control. So, Dylan, you ready for this? I did the research. I just don't actually do it, and now we're doing it on air, so I don't have a chance to bolster my squad and make it look really good for social media. I don't do that. All right, we're on the clock. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness, PFF, you dog. All right, guess who went 31? Xavier Worthy. Guess who's still on the board?
Ladd McConkey.
Well, Ladd McConkey, yes. Jerzon Newton. If you know who he is, defensive lineman, Big 12 or Big 10 Defensive Player of the Year from Illinois. A lot of folks have him going top 20. Most people think he's not getting outside the top 25. This guy, Jerzon Newton, had 13 sacks over the past 2 seasons as an interior defensive lineman. If you want a guy who can, I don't want to say the heir to Chris Jones, but if you wanted a guy who can be alongside Chris Jones on the inside and get pressure, this is the dude you want. If you want a guy who, when Chris Jones kicks to edge on obvious passing down situations, and you want a guy who can still play on the interior, that's Jerzon Newton. A couple other guys on the board is Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Alabama. Got Troy Franklin, obviously. Ladd McConkey. Dylan, I'm going to roll with Jerzon Newton. I know people might not like it. I'm going interior defensive lineman because I think he is a legit first-round prospect. I get he might not be a need. He might be more of a want. But when you have this on the board, you roll with it. So I'm going Newton at 32. We drafted him. Dylan gave me a thumbs up. We're down at 64. 64. And some good names. Some interesting names. We have Andrew Phillips, cornerback from Kentucky. We have Marshawn Nealand, edge rusher from Western Michigan. That's who Matt Derrick rolled with. Jermaine Burton, if you want to deal with the potential off-the-field issues. Devontae Walker from UNC, who is a potential boom or bust type of guy. Again, this is where it gets tricky for Kansas City, because if they stay at 64 and they do not draft wide receiver in the first round, wide receiver list right now starts to really get tight. You start getting into more of the boomer busts with less floor. Again, the Burtons, the Walkers, the Javon Bakers, Johnny Wilson, Jamari Thrash, which seems way too high in the second. All right, Dylan, what are we doing? What are we going to do at 64? Do we go with the
Jermaine Burton?
I think Burton, too. As much as I want to go maybe best player available with cornerback Andrew Phillips.
Burton, because you're not going to have another chance at a, like you said, wide receiver gets thin after this.
Yeah. You going Burton?
Yep.
All right.
I said Burton a long time ago.
I get it, baby. The off-the-field stuff does not bother you. Or at least
I'm
you
not
think
gonna
it's...
say it doesn't bother me, but it's something that I feel like, you have to do your homework on. I don't have the, ability to do my homework on every single thing he's done.
Sure.
I just feel like if Nick Saban has been able to put him in that culture and it be a little bit better than it was before at Georgia, then there's a chance.
Yeah.
Just got to do your homework.
I'm with you. And again, I've said for a while now with the Rashee Rice situation, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, now you can't draft a guy with any potential off-the-field stuff. My thought process is we didn't hear about any red flags from Rashee Rice. The only guy who really heard from was Keyshawn Johnson, right? And so my point is you can draft a guy who you think is never going to get in trouble. You can draft a guy who you think is just, oh, man, he wouldn't do that. You just never know, man. You never know. And so if you never know, look at George Pickens right now, right? Remember some of the concerns with Pickens? Hey, Dylan, what's Pickens done in the NFL?
It's been pretty good with a bad quarterback.
But has he had any issues? Has he had, I mean, if you want to say me first, maybe.
I'd say the blocking thing last year for
would
sure.
you have the blocking thing, or would you have...
Right. I agree.
And so my point is, guys can have red flags all they want coming out of college. You never know. So I know a lot of people use the Rashee Rice situation and say you can't draft a guy with red flags. I almost say, you know what? At some point, because you don't know, draft the talent. Draft the more talented player. Draft the DK Metcalf. Draft the George Pickens over Sky. So in this one, we're drafting Burton in the second round. We get to the third round here, Dylan. Third round, 95. Johnny Wilson, the big tight end from Florida State, right? Big tight end from Florida State. Javon Solomon, the edge rusher from Troy. I think Eric All from Iowa. That's too pricey for my taste. You have Ben Sinnott, Dominique Pooney, Christian Mahogany from Boston College, who I think is a very intriguing prospect. Let's stick with these three, Dylan. Dominique Pooney, the tackle from Kansas, who I think can play most likely guard, but who could probably move out to tackle in a pinch. But if you want your super sub, I think Dominique Pooney's your guy. Ben Sinnott, who I think is maybe the second or third best tight end in this draft. Whatever your thoughts are on Jatavian Sanders from Texas, I think Ben Sinnott is probably 3. 40-inch vertical, 6'4". I'm intrigued with Ben Sinnott. And then again, Christian Mahogany, your guard, who I think is going to be a very solid guard. And whatever your thoughts are on Joe Tooney or Trey Smith, I think Mahogany's the guy that you could plug and play whenever they're gone. Between those three guys, Dylan, who you rolling with?
I don't know who you got, because I think they're all pretty solid, same people. I'd go Pooney just with the KU bias a little bit.
Sure.
But
My thought was honestly Ben Sinnott.
yeah,
My thought was tight end, and I think there's more upside with Sinnott if you can get him in the 3rd round.
that feels like that won't be there. But I will have Ben Sinnott in the 3rd round.
Well, I think Ben Sinnott is a 3rd round guy. I don't think he's going to the 2nd personally.
Right, but maybe somebody you don't. We all don't.
We all don't
think.
know. We all don't. Eric All may be going before him, or Eric All might be a 5th rounder.
Yeah.
Like we're using PFF Simulator right now. We have it set up on normal
take Ben
randomness.
Sinnott.
I think Ben Sinnott. I think we're going Ben Sinnott. I know PFF's not going to like it because they're going to want us to take probably Dominic Pooney because he has a T and not a TE listed by his name. But I think Ben Sinnott is too good of value to not pick up there. All right, now we get to pick 131. Well, maybe we should have gone with Pooney because Theo Johnson from Penn State on the board still. Jared Wiley from TCU still on the board there. Dwayne Carter, interior defensive lineman from Duke on the board. I think he's been going up some folks' draft boards as well. Will Shipley still on the board. I'm going Will Shipley.
Yeah, I liked that pick.
I love that pick for Matt Derrick in the 4th. That's not too high for you for a running back, is it? You're not getting a little.
There's only one round that is too high for a running back. So
Well, there's
no.
multiple. 1st and 2nd.
Nah, you can get a 2nd round running back. Would you have taken Jonathan Taylor where he's at?
If you know what you know now.
Well, yes, that means that there's a good 2nd rounder.
Would you have taken J.K. Dobbins?
We seem to want him this year.
Didn't get him this year. Didn't want him that much, did they?
And
the injuries. I mean, injuries are always a part.
Right.
It's always 2020.
And the
but-
dude was an absolute stud when he was on the field. So
All right, got Will Shipley. Now we're getting into the 5th round. Now we're getting into the fun. Now we're getting into the. I mean, you could have had Cody Schrader. Oh, I like this pick. I'm sorry. Javon Foster. We'll get our tackle right now, Javon Foster. I'm going to go with. Who do you want to go with here in the 6th round? Dylan, we can go with either.
well, they could draft another Missouri player so that it's insulated from any type of criticism if they're not that great, like they did with another position on our team.
That was in Missouri, though.
Nick Bolton didn't go to Missouri?
He's incredible.
Oh, he's great, yeah. He's really good.
Why are you being?
He is a very serviceable linebacker. I'm just trying to hopefully
we're getting into
Nick
this right
Bolton.
now. No, we're getting into this right now. I'm not saying
Is
you
he better than Fred Warner?
No, what?
Roquan Smith.
What? You're naming the
Roquan Smith.
You're naming the 2 best linebackers in football,
The
guy.
highest paid.
And the 2 best linebackers in football, guy.
Right. So you would pay them. You'd pay Nick Bolton more than them because that's what's going
No.
to happen.
When did I ever say, Dylan, Nick Bolton's a good linebacker, to you equating that with me wanting to pay Nick Bolton more?
I'm saying I don't want to pay him. I said he's serviceable, but don't pay him a contract over other guys like Trey Smith, Creed Hunt, things like, players that you can pay top of the market value and actually pass that off as a good deal.
You would pay, and sorry, we're a little off topic, but I think it's actually a really fun conversation, and I don't care that much about the 6th and 7th round. I'm going to pick my guys that I want, and I'm going to go with there so we can get our final grade.
And they'll pick
Sorry,
someone we've never
it's
heard
fun.
of, too.
Yeah,
so,
it's going to be great. Actually, I've heard of them. It's actually from Matt Derrick's draft, and I trust him. Okay. You would pay Trey Smith over Nick Bolton. That's your thought process right now.
Yep.
Disagree.
Why?
Nick Bolton is the green dot defensively. He is the
So
leader.
was Ben Neiman at one point. No,
No,
not the
but
green dot.
come on, but
remember-
don't
remember we had to-
equate Ben Neiman with Nick Bolton
I'm
here.
not. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, and Tyron Smith and Dan Sorensen both play safety.
Right, and that was also the reason they had to be on the field because they get everyone into position. Like no one else in the planet can do that with a couple of years under the system if you draft well and actually get. Because he was a 2nd rounder. Nick Bolton was, and he's been serviceable. He's been a great, good to great linebacker. I just wouldn't pay him a 2nd contract. Because he's going to. Those 2 guys I named, how many rings do they have? 0. So you can, if you're his agent, I would be slamming
you're not
on that,
saying
hey,
rings for a middle linebacker.
if you're his agent,
sure.
you're not talking about all the success he's had in the postseason, all the tackles he's made.
Sure, but my point is here, Nick Bolton is an integral part of this defense. He was a big part of the turnaround of the mindset, one of the highest IQ.
Frank Clark wasn't. Tyrann Mathieu wasn't.
That's age too. Nick Bolton is at the same age as those guys. We're not talking about a third contract for these dudes. We're talking about a second contract for these guys. I would say him with Drew Tranquil and how many more years? 2 more years of Leah Chenal.
I think you paid your green dot in Drew Tranquil. That's the money that you used to spend on a green dot. It's Drew Tranquil to replace and then bridge the gap from Bolton to the next one that might be on a little younger.
Well, then you're starting to draft a linebacker this year. You're trying to draft a linebacker this or next year then.
Sure.
I think it's easier to find a guard than a middle linebacker that does what Nick Bolton does.
I think tomatoes, because I think they're both. You can find them late. You don't
Sure.
have to.
And by the way, I'm not saying you pay Nick Bolton top dollar.
I just think that's what he wants. And
Everyone wants that.
It. Right.
Everyone wants to be paid top dollar. Doesn't mean you're going to get it.
So it shouldn't be here.
I don't think he gets top dollar to begin with. I don't think any team is going to see Nick Bolton and say a guy who has some deficiencies in pass coverage, we're making him higher paid than Fred Warner. I don't think we see that. That's my issue too, or I wouldn't even say an issue. That's my conversation here. I don't think he gets that money. Trey Smith, I think, again, going with Matt Derrick as well, I think Trey Smith is getting $60 million guaranteed. I think you see Trey Smith get a extremely large contract, especially what you have seen with the guard market exploding this past offseason. Where's the linebacker market? Has the middle linebacker market all of a sudden exploded? No. I didn't mean to get into a argument with you, Dylan, because but don't do my Nick Bolton like that. That dude gets unfair hate, in my opinion. Don't like it. Don't do that to me.
Okay, so it goes Roquan Smith at $20 million, Fred Warner at $19, Tremaine Edmonds at $18 million. Then C.J. Mosley, $17, Lua Khan, $15 with the Jags. Matt Milano, $14.2 to just round it out with a known name there.
And we obviously know that how contracts work, it's next man up, right? It doesn't always mean the best player, Mahomes.
That's what I'm saying, though. Don't do it. Don't give.
You
Nick
don't do it,
Bolton
but
$21 million.
if you give him, let's say, $17 million a year, you win. $16 million a year, you win.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
so we're on the same page then. We're arguing and we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. There you go. That's how it works.
Look at that. Look at that, America. We can have different viewpoints and still agree. Look at us go.
If only that could translate to another genre of topics outside of sports.
Yeah, LeBron versus
Jordan.
Michael versus Jordan. Yeah. That's what you're going for, right? That's what you're talking about?
That's what I meant.
All right, PFF gave us a overall draft grade of B+. We went Jerzon Newton, first round, 32. That was an A+ grade. Jermaine Burton from Alabama, wide receiver. That was a B grade. He was drafted at 64 by us. Ben Sinnott, tight end from K-State. That was a C- grade. I told you we weren't going to get a great grade because it's a TE, not a T. I don't care. I like that pick. Fourth round, we went with Will Shipley, running back from Clemson. Javon Foster in the fifth round, tackle from Missouri. Fifth round, safety. We went Oladapo from Oregon State, the safety. That's actually who exactly Matt Derrick went with. And then I went with a little wild card in the seventh. I went with Bub Means, wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Double down. So PFF gave us a B+. What do you think there, Dylan? How did we do?
I think it's A+.
I think we did a damn good job.
An A++.
Right?
I agree.
For my first mock draft.
That was a real draft.
Legit
like we actually
mock
argued
draft.
about a prospect too in the middle of it. Like
Yes,
that's
we
a
did.
real life.
That's
draft.
a real draft, and we argued so long that we were actually off the clock, and it got passed, and it auto selected. That's a real draft, baby. That's a real draft. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Up next, we'll be joined by Ladd McConkey. After that, we'll be joined by Julian Edelman. The Zone right here, Sports Radio 810 WHB. Surprise some people. First up, Lad McConkey.
There's an elephant in the room here because I'm a Mizzou alum. So I just have to say thank you for destroying all my hopes and dreams last year. Thought the Tigers were going to get it done, and then of course you go for what 7-95, just crushing me, Lad.
Yeah, it was a good game though. Even like last year, y'all always played us well. So I respect Missouri for sure.
I do want to point out when you were playing with a team that has elite expectations like Georgia, how do you feel that translates to a team in the NFL, right? Where in college, sometimes, I'm not saying you particularly, but some guys are me first guys. When you get to the NFL, it's all team first, but you have that expectations already in college. How do you think that translates?
Yeah. I mean, at Georgia, I feel like we, kind of developed that, championship DNA. We want to go out there and win. We want to get the job done. We're going to, whatever we do, we're going to put our best foot forward. So I feel like at Georgia, they develop us, and it will definitely translate in kind of every way possible to the NFL. So, Coach Smart had us ready along with all the other coaches. So hopefully I can bring, some of that with me to whatever team I end up with.
I know you had a very nice 4.39 blazing out there. Combine as a whole went very well for you. Was it what you expected? How do you train for something like that? Because obviously in a game, you're rocking pads. You're not out there in shorts and a T-shirt trying to go 40 yards in a straight line. How did you try and train for that?
Yeah, so I was actually training in Exos in Pensacola. So it was, kind of completely different training than I've been used to. Like when you want to do a set or whatever you're doing, then let your body recover. At Georgia, we're like, all right, let's line up. Like we're getting the best shape possible. Like we're doing all this, grinding, doing that. But it was different. But I liked it. They did a great job down there, and I was happy with my results.
I'm sure the interview process for you has also been underway. Have you had any weird questions so far?
Someone asked me that, and I was fully as prepared as I could be, I guess, to get some crazy questions because that's what everyone has said. But I haven't had anything too out of the ordinary. So I was kind of upset. I was like, dang, I was ready for some.
You were waiting. You had them all written down. They're like, I have it planned. Got it planned.
Ready for some.
When you're talking to these different teams, how have they been viewing you? Is it pretty 1-versus-1, like, hey, you'll be doing this, you'll be doing that? Or are a lot of them coming to you saying, hey, we view you as a slot. We view you as moving all over the field. What have those conversations been like?
Yeah, most of the teams have really said, that they see me as a guy that can kind of move around. They're like, at first, I feel like my label was I'm going to be a slot receiver. But, now teams talking to me, see me run routes and going back and watch my film and really understand I played more outside than I did inside at Georgia. I feel like they kind of are starting to see that it's going to be able to translate both ways at the next level as well.
Yeah, I know. I know that, again, as a Mizzou fan, I know you can play outside very, very well. Again, going back to that route running prowess that you have, how do you work on something like that? Obviously, there's the athleticism side, but also the mental side of trying to manipulate it, because it's great when you run a 4.39, but just liken it to, let's say, for example, Travis Kelce in the NFL. Dude's not the fastest guy, but the way he shakes, the way he's able to create separation, manipulating the guys on him. How do you view that breakdown of getting better and improving your route running?
Yeah, and I feel like it's a lot about understanding leverage. You don't got to run full speed, every single route. You can kind of tempo it down and do stuff in between routes. So, but it all just comes with reps. I think at the end of the day, it's like whether that's, in practice working on something or, before or after practice, getting some reps in. So it's really good to run full speed reps, but in full routes. But you don't always have to do that. You can work on your craft and work on top of routes releases, and then when it's time to put it all together, that's when you go out and do that.
Do you like outside more than slot, or where do you prefer? Do you even have a preference?
I don't care. Shoot, wherever I get the ball, that's where I want to be.
I know you had 21 punt returns at Georgia your first 2 years, but your final year, no punt returns. Was that a Georgia choice? Was that a you saying, "Hey, I'm trying to get more involved just offensively. Don't want to take some stamina,
Yeah.
some of that away"? Would you do punt returns in the NFL? Where do you view this here?
Yeah, no, with the stamina thing and stuff, man, like put me out there. That's another opportunity to get the ball in my hands. So no, but I'd really, the reason I didn't do it is I missed those first 4 games. We had a kid that was doing it, and he did it good. Like he had a touchdown. So they just let him roll with it, and shoot, I supported him through that. But that is definitely something I want to do at the next level. Having conversations with coaches, caught some punts in my pro day as well. So
nice.
Yep.
I saw you grew up a fan of the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah.
You grew up in Georgia. 1, why were you a Volunteers fan? And 2, why did you choose Georgia over Tennessee?
Yeah. So just like my family, we were huge Tennessee fans. My grandfather, my dad, brother. That's just kind of how it was. We grew up Tennessee fans. But yeah, the reason I went to Georgia is I didn't get an offer from Tennessee. So I can't say that, I wouldn't have been there if they would have offered me, but it all worked out just how it was supposed to.
Was there a little something extra when you played Tennessee? A little bit of, come on now.
Yeah, now. I mean, a little bit. Yeah, you're like, it's just like I grew up watching them. Like, so yeah, a little bit. I don't know what it was, but there was something.
What do you say to folks who might have some pushback? I've seen some of this and just the national media of, Ladd McConkey, great route runner. We know what he can do, but we've not necessarily seen the production at the college level. Obviously, there's some guys who are going for, over 1,000 yards receiving. They're the focal points of the offense. I get how Georgia's offense is run. What pushback do you say to those people?
Well, if you look at our roster, honestly, like if you look, I got Brock Bowers, I got Ra Thomas, I got Dom Lovett, I got Marcus Roseman, I got Kendall Milton, Dejon Edwards. Like we have guys that got to get the ball. So that's just the way it is. Like we shared it. We weren't really like a pass only, run only. We shared the ball around. And in this past year, like if you really look at the games I played and the games I was out there, I put up the numbers. Just got unfortunate injuries kind of held me back some this year. So I feel like I was set up for a big year this year. Just didn't happen the way I wanted it to.
What is something that people listening might not know about Ladd McConkey? Can be on the field, off the field. What's something that folks might not know about you?
I can play some ping pong. Yeah, come play me in ping pong.
Oh man, I'll take that challenge. Okay,
right. Hey, we'll do it.
I'll take you in that challenge. I'm going to say something here. You won back-to-back titles at Georgia. The Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls. They're in the market for a wide receiver. Yep. They're sitting there a little bit where your draft stock's at. Have you thought about Kansas City much, and have you talked with the Chiefs at all?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. They're a great organization. Won Super Bowls back-to-back. Like great quarterback, great coaches, great team. So nothing but great things to say about them. I've met with them a little bit at the Senior Bowl. So we'll see what comes out of it.
I'm just saying, again, I'm here in Kansas City. We got a lot of Ladd McConkey to Kansas City. Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that one out there. Before I let you go here, what is a team getting when they draft you? What's a team getting in totality when they draft Ladd McConkey?
Yeah, I think they're getting a guy that's bringing in, like you said, a championship DNA. I know how to win. I feel like I've done it at the college level. A guy that can come in and contribute day one. So whatever you need me to do, I feel like I can get the job done.
Again, two-time champion right there in college with Georgia. 2024 NFL Draft prospect Ladd McConkey. Ladd, really appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I did love the little smirk he gave at the very beginning when I said I was a Mizzou alum, and that little smirk he gave was it got me. I will say, though, I personally learned a lot about him as a returner, where he fits. I think he does get thrown into the slot category when in reality he played more on the outside at Georgia. Again, I think the more I learned about Ladd, the more I've dug into what he did at Georgia, the more enamored I am as far as him being a legitimate pick for Kansas City at 32. Again, I liken him to George Karlaftis, where the ceiling might not be the highest. He might not have the highest ceiling. Again, obviously, you're drafting at 32, but even at some of the guys that you could potentially draft at 32. But I think the floor is such that game one, week one, you can plug and play. And again, with the what is going to happen with Rashee Rice, I don't hate that. Again, you don't want to give up necessarily, 4 games for 5 years, but at the same time, I think Ladd McConkey is a guy that is going to give you a damn good 5 years as well. Next up, we have the interview I did with Julian Edelman. Joined now by 3-time Super Bowl champion and man who seemingly crushed all my hopes and dreams as a Chiefs fan growing up, Julian Edelman. Julian, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. For everyone here who is listening, if you want a personal FaceTime with Julian, if you want to fly on the Patriots team plane, if you want to announce the Pats' 3rd-round selection, well, guess what? Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL Draft, is partnering with 3-time Super Bowl champion Julian Edelman and the New England Patriots, and they're making this dream a reality with Bud Light's Easy Wishes NFL Draft experience, where one 21-plus Patriots fan will experience the thrill of the NFL Draft weekend like never before as part of the brand's ongoing commitment to bringing unforgettable experiences to NFL fans. Julian, tell us more about this, man.
Yeah, playing for the Patriots, the relationship with the Patriots and Bud Light was always around. To having a chance to partner up with Bud Light for this Bud Light Easy Wishes NFL Draft experience, to give one fan an unbelievable experience, I thought it was a slam dunk. This is a time of year where every organization has hope. Every organization has hope. Every fan base has hope. And, New England Patriots not being in this specific position for a long time, having a top 10 pick since, 2008, who we picked Gerard Mayo, our head coach, with that pick. This is going to be a fun draft for some fan to go and experience the drive, fly on the team plane, have I'm going to FaceTime with you if you like that, or you don't. Maybe we can talk some smack to each other. And this would honestly be, how unbelievable would it be, since this is a Kansas City radio station? How crazy would it be if a Kansas City fan won this thing? What if the Kansas City fans go onto any of the Bud Light social media platforms, any of them, and just start hashtagging Easy Wishes, Easy Wishes, Easy Wishes, and one of the Kansas City fans gets to go, like you said, into the New England Patriots organization and have that experience with probably some Travis Kelce jersey on, or a Patrick Mahomes jersey on, and kind of just rub it in our face, because we, when I was there, that was easy. That was easy work. But, now that the Chiefs are the Chiefs of now, they can give some salt back to the Patriots. But this is really for the Patriots fans. I'm sorry, Chiefs fans.
I do want to say,
Easy Wishes NFL Draft Experience. Hashtag Easy Wishes, baby.
I do want to talk about the similarities and the differences, because who better to ask than you, someone who was a major part of one of the greatest dynasties throughout sports. Now we're seeing the Chiefs try and following in the Patriots' footsteps here. What similarities and what differences do you see with Kansas City and New England?
One of the similarities that was really apparent this year and last was their ability to adjust their team with the players that they have and find a formula to go out and win. I mean, it was really impressive for the team, to lose Tyreek Hill and then be able to replace him and start beefing up that defense, and they still have production on offense last year, and then to repeat it this year with probably not their best receiving core. I mean, they did lead the league in drops. So, but when those players needed to make plays for the team in the playoffs and important plays, they made plays, and they were able to rely on that defense that was playing stout. So, the ability to transform your team each year, is something that I can relate to. And especially now, you're America's most wanted. You're on that you're the bounty, bro. Everyone circles you every year, and they get everyone's best every week. Every team thinks if you go out and beat the Chiefs in week 3, week 8, week 7. Coaches think they're going to get new jobs. Players think they're going to get paid. We did that for 20 years. So it's impressive to see what they're doing, and I wish them the best.
I will say, just alluding to that as well, some teams have that ability to turn it on in the playoffs. Patriots did it. The Chiefs did it. During the regular season, maybe you sit back just a little bit. Long season, it's a grind. Playoffs come around. All of a sudden, you guys are fresh. I think you're an example. You 50 yards per game in the regular season, come postseason, averaging over 75 yards per game. I mean, your most memorable moments came on the biggest stage. How were you able to take it to that next level when the lights were the brightest?
Like you said, you're not like. So the season when you're winning, you lose players. So great teams can go out and configure their team while also getting wins, and that's what the Chiefs had to do all year. Okay, so they had to learn what made them their best. Just like we had to learn, we go 2-2. Everyone thinks we're gonna, we're out in 14, this, that. You come on, win the Super Bowl. Like, you're still configuring and seeing what you have that's different from the year before. What's this specific team? And then once you find that formula, that's when you ride it out through the playoffs. And I just so happen to be part of a lot of the formula when we needed it in the playoffs. That's when you don't leave anything in the bag. That's when, you're not playing the tendency game where we're trying to run, or you're blowing teams out and you're not throwing the ball anymore. There's a lot of things and similarities that you see with the Chiefs that we had. So, and also preparation. Our preparation in New England was tough, starting with, how coach handled the practices, how Tom was a leader in the practices and always practiced with a purpose, even though he had the most success out of anyone on the team. To see your leader go out and always be practicing hard, it makes everyone have to fall in line. And so the practices were tough. And then when you get to the game moment, if you practice hard, we always say practice execution becomes game reality. It's just deja vu. So that's probably why I had some of my best games in the.
I want to ask you a little Julian Edelman history question here. I don't know if you remember a specific Week 11 game you played on Monday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs. Is there any Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs that stands out to you?
Well, it wasn't the one where we got blown out, was it?
It's the one where you returned a punt 72 yards for a touchdown.
Charles.
And you played defense in the game.
Yeah, that was in 2011. I housed a punt that game.
Yeah, housed a punt, and you're playing cornerback.
Yeah, I was playing dime. So you guys had Jamal Charles. We were banged up on defense, and so the week before, I think we played the Jets, and they put me in late in the game on defense to see how I could do it, and then I had a package against the Chiefs because that's when Jamal Charles, they were using him out of the backfield a whole lot. And so we put this dime package they had, and I had to cover Charles.
Did you dig it, man? I mean, I can't imagine all of a sudden, first off, you're a quarterback in college. Then all of a sudden now you're a return specialist and wide receiver. Now the Patriots like, hey, man, if that's not enough, we want you to play dime and make sure you go up against Jamal. What was that like, the transition of all of a sudden now you're playing a little defense?
Well, we did the same thing back when Troy Brown was there at the Patriots, and he actually had an interception. They were banged up. Troy Brown went in there and played nickel and played really well. So to see someone be able to go do it that's done it in our system, I was like, all right, I can go do it, whatever. And defense was fun, it was hard because you have to do everything in a back pedal. But I was able to cheat because I would just study situations and down and distance. And I'd always be in on like a third down, and you could just study their concepts and what they liked. And I knew that receivers hated the line of scrimmage. Just hold as long as you can for that 5 yards and just pester them and try to get them off. Like I would just do those types of things. The things that receivers hated, it honestly helped me as a receiver because being in the defensive back room, I would go to those meetings. You learn what they're being taught, and it helped me with my route running going forward as well. So it was a fun experience.
Before I let you go here, Julian, what are your thoughts on the new kickoff rules? Would you have dug this? I feel like you would have thrived with these new kickoff rules coming up.
No, I think it's going to be exciting. I'm very excited about it because it's going to give this play a shot to be played. It's going to be very similar to like a punt return because there's only one wave. When I first got in the league, we had the 3-man wedge. You get through the penetrators, there's one wave, then you have the second group, there's another wave, and there was always a track for the returner, which is very different than punt returning. Punt returning, they're all coming to you at the same wave, and you would always want to, try to bring the defense into you, then go to your return side and stick a foot and go and get vertical. If you break that wave, you're good. So it's going to be a fun play. I'm excited to see it, and I'm also excited for the special teamers to, still have be able to have a play. I mean, they're trying to eliminate that thing. This maybe give us a shot. Now, it's crazy. I just remember when there was literally guys on the team, Bubba Ventrone, that were 205 pounds, and their job was to run 90 yards into the 310-pound guy. Like, I loved it. That's football. But this new stuff is cute, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm too soft for that. So, yeah, that's not me. Couldn't do that. I know myself. I'm very soft. But everyone who is 21 plus who's listening to this, make sure you go to Bud Light's Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you comment Easy Wishes, hashtag Easy Wishes, and why you want to go to the 2024 NFL Draft. 3-time Super Bowl champion Julian Edelman. Julian, really appreciate it, man.
Had fun, man.
Honestly, if he played for any other team besides the Patriots, no, man, he's such a good dude. Julian Edelman is entertaining. He was fun. He was engaged. It was fun. I recorded that on Zoom, and I think he enjoyed actually talking about Kansas City to an extent because I'm sure he gets all the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady questions all the time. So the fact he actually got to talk about him playing defense and trying to guard Jamal Charles out of the backfield, that's probably a story he hasn't told very much on air. So I thought that was very cool. That was going back to that 2011 Monday night game. I did love the fact that when I brought up the Chiefs, originally goes, "Oh, you're gonna bring up the time that the Chiefs just absolutely clobbered the Patriots." But no, come on, I'm not gonna do that to you, Julian. But yeah, man, I think he is a guy that if he played for any other team, I think a lot of other fans around the league would have a lot of. They would have loved watching him play even more. But I appreciate Julian Edelman and I appreciate Ladd McConkey both for taking their time doing the interview with me right here. Just a heads up, I got a few more interviews that I will be doing throughout the week heading up into the NFL draft. Xavier Legette. Be interviewing Xavier Legette, wide receiver from South Carolina. That's actually being interviewed today. Be dropping sometime next week, as well as I'll be interviewing Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, as well as Lions quarterback Jared Goff. If you guys want to check that out, feel free to follow me on Twitter at HomestretchKC. Everything will be posted there. Hopefully we'll get the shows played on here as well as some of the interviews if we have time. But if not, you can find it all at my Twitter account at HomestretchKC. We'll take a break. Come back. The Zone rolls on. Sports Radio 810 WHB. Schaefer in just one moment. Got an adult back in the room now, Dylan. We will finally have, well, can we call Mick an adult again? He's like the Pete Davidson. He's the resident young guy. He's older than us, but he is somehow still the resident old guy. The Royals play tonight at 6:40 on the bump for KC. You have Alec Marsh 2-0 with a 4.32 ERA. Heading up against Dean Kramer. Dean Kramer 0-1, 4.96. Royals half game back of the Cleveland Guardians, and the Royals still have the best run differential in all of baseball. Mick Schaefer up next. On the glass, Mick Schaefer in studio. Mick, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm in front of the glass, separated by glass from Dylan. Jason's not here. We can do what we want. Substitute teacher, man. Pop in a movie.
We were laughing, saying that you were going to be the adult in the room, and then you come in rocking ripped jeans, a My Chemical Romance shirt, and a Patagonia hat. So you actually are younger. You're the Pete Davidson of the show.
First of all, they're like my lawn jeans, right? They're work jeans.
Are you sure they're not your church jeans because they're
not
holy?
my church, right? Yeah, that too. I got the tights on underneath because when I started working in the yard, it was like 43 degrees this morning. My Chemical Romance, it's the old band, man. They've been around for like 20 plus years, bud. They ain't new.
I guess that shows my age of what I think
they've
is
been
young
around
music,
about as long as you've been around, buddy.
Yeah.
And then Patagonia, is that a young brand? I feel like we've moved on from Patagonia. There's been other layers of like hats and stuff that come. I don't know if there's.
Isn't it? It's Lululemon.
Is
now.
it Lulu now? Yeah, absolutely.
Which I guess really shows my age if I'm still back in the.
Yeah. But I think my mowing shoes.
Oh wow, they don't even have laces.
No.
How do your feet not just fall out?
I don't know, man. They're shoes.
No.
Gravity,
Pull
I
them up. Let Dylan take a look. How does his feet stay in these?
Well, he's probably not sprinting while he's
No. I
You've
get
owned
that.
shoes without laces before, right?
Correct.
Okay,
but not tennis like Vans. Like tennis shoes, the tongue would fly open, and then every step you take.
Nah, not all the time.
Oh man,
especially mowing shoes. That
mowing
is
shoes, baby.
that is the quintessential mowing shoe.
Yeah, you
to
don't
want
to take your time. You're doing enough effort in the yard. You don't need to lace them up, man. Just slip them on. Let's go.
It's one step away from the garbage. Usually, is
they
your
are.
mowing shoe.
Oh yeah,
literally.
Mine
That's
are
where I
one
keep them,
step
too,
from
one
the.
step away.
There you go.
Actually,
Exactly.
mine are too. I have a little. They're literally next to them, like they're touching.
Just they know if they betray me, it's where they're going.
Mine are very slick now because when you mow grass, the grass just in the dew and everything, there's no
traction.
There's
anymore.
no traction anymore. It's a flat surface. So if you try walking
and
in
all
the
the
garage,
dog crap you've stepped on, that's filled into the cracks in the bottoms,
the
of
crevices.
the shoes. Yeah.
Whenever you walk in the garage, it's like you're ice skating right there. You're trying not to tear your ACL out there. So it's a game that should be in the Olympics.
It's tough out here in the real world. I let my wife and my kids know that hey, we had a big project today. We were tilling. I was tilling, and we were gonna do a lot of mulching and some mowing and some killing of the weeds and all that stuff. Just basically went nuclear on a handful of flower beds. And so I let them know that when we'd be doing it and all that. And so I think, I did a pretty good job considering it was all me.
I'm proud of you. Yeah.
It was actually, it would be more effort to kind of get my kids to help out than it is just to do it myself.
I remember that age too. And your kids probably said something nice like, "Of course, Dad, we'll help you out." And then you're out there at 8 a.m. and where are they? They're asleep.
No, they
still.
never said that.
Oh, really?
It was just a text and just silence, crickets, and they hoped that I would maybe forget and whatever. No, they came out. They helped a little bit, so it was fine. But yeah, no, I remember being that age too. And like, what? And then you get older, you realize you have responsibilities and you have ownership, right? That's like it's not their house. They're just
not even
like, they got a
renting.
room
They're not
or
even
whatever.
paying money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they don't care.
They got no skin in the game.
They're squatters. It's like squatters' rights. That's what kids are. Yeah.
And pretty soon, the real world's gonna slap in the face.
What's your?
I mean, they're 35 and 30. Those are their ages right now. Pretty soon, 40, 45, they're gonna move out. Maybe.
Well, then at that point, they got to take care of you.
No, they're not. They're one's a tween. Gosh, she's 12 and one's 17.
Nice.
Yeah. So, anyway.
What's your lawn music when you're working on the lawn?
Oh yeah,
you got to have a nice playlist.
I had the earbuds in, and it was just my playlist on my Apple Music. That's a new age thing, right? I paid for that. That's legit.
Come on now.
Any song that's ever been made, sure, I'll take it.
Steve Miller Band, I think, is a good choice. When you're doing yard work, Steve Miller Band with an ice cold Busch Light is a great combination. Great combo.
Yeah, I didn't have the hands for the Busch Lights. I had some Kings of Leon. They have a great new song out. Like a little Wyatt Flores, a little Zach Bryan, Hosier, a little Ryan Hurd. Yeah, lots of stuff. Those are actually newer.
Look
they're
at
newer
you.
bands
Yeah.
than My Chemical Romance. So maybe I am hip. Maybe I am the
you're
young guy.
you're the Pete Davidson of this show. You might be older, but you act younger.
Yeah. And then people just can't understand the women I date. How's that possible?
Yeah, this guy?
Yeah, wait, he dates her?
Yeah. I liked how Shane waltzed in here beforehand with a big smile and laugh on his face. For those that don't know, here at Sports Radio 810, we have pictures on the wall. And
once every 10 years, the shows will get together and they'll go I think it's at a church, right? It's like an Owen Mills.
Yeah, we puff white
setting.
smoke and black and different colored smoke out of the top of the
yes, they
the
go to a
station.
church and they get the pictures. Everybody dresses up in a suit, which is hilarious because even at funerals and weddings, these radio guys wear suits, and then they take pictures.
Yeah.
And so the last one up there was Jason and Corey, which was a few years and a couple of hosts, co-hosts ago.
Just a couple. And so I sent a picture to Shane. He's like, send me a picture. And I go, okay. So I sent a picture. He cut out a picture of me and put it on Corey's body. I've yet to see it, so I'll see it in the break. He said it was what nightmares are made of.
Yeah.
So.
And that's not the first time that would have been done on one of those photos, right? Isn't Jake superimposed his face on there?
He is, but we've gone from Jake being there originally and then through a few producers, and Jake's now back. He's back, so they didn't have to even change it. So that's got that going for him.
Yeah, you could just take pictures more often if you wanted to.
Yeah, but then they have to put on a suit. Do you think those people still wear suits?
I want to see the conversation that's had when somebody is telling Soren Petro to put on a suit.
Yeah, Petro put on a suit and a tie, by the way.
And a tie.
And a tie. Yeah. It's got to go over great. Go over very well.
He's probably one of those guys that never unties his tie. He just loosens it and hangs it on. Doesn't have to retie it.
Yeah. I had to learn in college, and that's the only reason why I know how to tie a tie. I know it one way. I can't do those fancy ties. That's not my style. I will say we didn't come here to talk about ties. We came here to talk about wins, and that's what the Chiefs have been doing. Brett Veach talking about the NFL draft today.
Yeah.
I thought he had some pretty interesting conversations. I think the most interesting one, we talked to Matt Derrick earlier, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this. He talked about the NIL effect, how 4th, 5th, 6th round prospects are getting a little older now. They're staying an extra year in college. The money's not that much different. Sure, it might be a 4-year guarantee versus a 1-year, but they're staying longer in college.
Yeah.
And that's all of a sudden making the drop-off line, which is for him, he said the 4th, 5th, 6th round, a little more steep. Not as much depth in the current NFL draft. I didn't know your thoughts there, but I'd never even questioned what the NIL might have as far as players staying in college longer and affecting just the overall age coming in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds.
Well, you've had that, and you've had the COVID year, which has been
Sure.
a redshirt year for a lot of these guys that they get back, right? And so a lot of these guys are playing 5, sometimes more years of playing time on the field in college football. And when you can make a little scratch there, there's nothing like college football, right? And the camaraderie, and it's still innocent enough, right? And you're closer to amateurism enough, right? And it's not quite the business that it will be at the NFL level. And so you hear these pros all the time, whether it's NFL, MLB, or NBA. They'll be like, you know what, the best times I had were in high school and college. And yeah, it's great now, the money's and all that, but money is great and all that. But the camaraderie in the locker room and the bus rides and all that stuff, you can't replace that. And so I think a lot of guys realize that, and if you can make some scratch, and like you said, okay, if I'm a 5th-round pick, there's nothing guaranteed. 6th, 7th, nothing guaranteed, especially if you're going to be an undrafted guy. Might as well stick around a year, see if you can up your draft stock. I'm not surprised by this. I may be a little bit surprised that we're seeing it already. We're seeing that cliff, that drop-off, that line move already in the NFL. And so we'll see once the kind of the COVID recruit babies, we're almost out of that zone, right?
One more year, I think, probably.
Roughly to where it hopefully stops affecting high school recruiting, and these college coaches can have a better idea of, okay, Eli Drinkwitz joked about like senior year's a moving target now, right? Because every senior day, right, for football, for basketball, whatever, it's like, okay, who's going to be out there? Which seniors are actually going to be seniors, right? Which seniors can play some more, right? And so it's kind of a moving target. And so I think hopefully we'll get past that here in the near future. But it all makes sense to me, man. And we'll see if we can see like that tangible effect on the field to where like, okay, oh man, these guys, you know, the back end of this team or these second stringers are just not good. I'll be surprised if we could see it there, but I believe Brett Veach, and if he's saying that line's moving, that line's moving.
Yeah, and I found it interesting because while it's also, sure, they're staying longer, so there might be a drop-off. Part of me is sitting here going, but will there be a drop-off because a lot of the guys that are coming now have played 4 or 5 years, so maybe they're more NFL ready, or at least more, there's less ceiling.
Right, is the potential dropping off, right? Because it's always the younger guy that you're more excited about because you don't know where their ceiling
and
is.
It's 1 year we're talking about.
As opposed to, the senior coming out, oh, God, this 22-year-old's washed up. When in reality, no, those, their ceiling, but they're also a lot of times better players, and I think we see that more in the NBA than we do in the NFL. But I think that's what he's getting at is the potential there. That's dropping because all these guys, we kind of we know what the back of their baseball card is. We know what they are, and for whatever reason, these pro leagues kind of shy away from that and treat these 22, even 23-year-olds like they're graybeards or something.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that he said the drop-off, all that stuff, the age, and then he goes, oh, yeah, I got 221 players on my draft board. 221 players.
That's about how many are drafted, right?
Veach's draft board. What's 7 times 32? We can do some math in the show, right?
Yeah, that's roughly 220, but
32. 224.
Yeah, but then there's
compensatory picks and all that stuff.
There may be 250 picks, something like that.
But that's a lot. And part of the reason is he says he has guys on the board in around 6 and 7 that he knows these guys probably aren't getting drafted, but the UDFAs. He wants to get them in. He wants to take a look at them. He wants to know what he has, be on the line. I just thought it was interesting come on now. There's a steep drop-off, but I have 221 players that I want to get my hands on.
What's their last pick? It's like 230-something. I can't remember, but wouldn't it be funny if all those guys were gone and like, wait, we have nobody left on our board, and like you're just calling up and surely
Nick Schaefer. Wow, you're getting a call, huh?
Yeah. It never works that way, but yeah, no, that's a lot of guys, and that's a lot of time they spend, and it seems like just an awesome job, doesn't it? Like that's your job all year round. Is you just watch tape, you travel to Tuscaloosa, to Gainesville, right, to Austin. You just watch football, and you just meet with these guys, and then a bunch of other guys doing the same thing. You guys get together, and you compare your notes, and then you argue over who's better and all that stuff. And then you're just, I can see everybody's got their own little nameplate, right? And you're just moving these guys up and down the board. That seems like such a fun job.
It sounds awesome until you're traveling to Western Michigan when it's cold. It sounds great until you're in
Ypsilanti, or is that Eastern Michigan?
Either of the Eastern or Western Michigans.
Any of the Michigans?
Yeah, I think you're out.
But you know what? You're in a suite there. It's not like they're
Sure.
putting you out there in
Yeah,
GA.
maybe. I think, but where you're staying
scout.
and stuff and moving. My thought is, it sounds great when you're going to, as you mentioned, the SEC schools, the Big 12, the Southern states when it's cold. You're like, oh, this is fun. And then you're like, no, man, we want you to go to Wyoming, and I don't know, go there in December. Go have fun.
It's fine. I'm there. Let's do it. I don't mind.
Oh, really, you?
What's that? I'll do it. Yeah. Of course, they had the area scouts. It's not like you're going,
I get
east
it.
to west coast, depending on the week. But yeah, no, make me your northwest, your Idaho, your Nordic region, your Montana. I'll be your guy up there, man.
I'll be the South
scout the few teams that play in Canada. How about that?
I'll be the South guy. I thought one of the more intriguing things Brett Veach said was Kadarius may be the most talented receiver, but it's all about health with him. And I'm sitting here going, did you?
I don't agree with that.
I'm like, Brett. I get it, Brett. You got 3 Super Bowls in 5 years back to back. I trust you, but you didn't have to say these things about it. No one would have questioned you if you said, yeah, we hope he gets right, or we hope he gets better, we hope he might be around. You didn't have to say such glowing remarks about Kadarius Toney, because it wasn't just the health. When he was on the field, what did he show you?
He's not really a burner, right? He's not Tyreek Hill. I don't remember any plays making guys miss. He doesn't break tackles, right? And so when he's not catching the football, I don't know what good he does. And look, he had a great return in the Super Bowl, one of the all-time great Chiefs plays. But there are 10 other guys blocking for him on that play. And so, no, I don't believe any of that.
I just was surprised by, and then he got to Sky Moore, and nothing negative about Sky, obviously. I didn't expect him to say anything negative about Kadarius, but it was just so glowing on Kadarius. You bring in Hollywood Brown, and you're still sitting here going, Kadarius might be the most talented receiver. You had what Rashee Rice did last year. You didn't have to say any of those things about KT. So my thought is, again, we talked to Matt Derrick about this, and he talked about how Tony's, beloved in the locker room. The coaches love him, all this stuff. That's fine and dandy, but it just feels like there's such a disconnect. I mean, the last thing we saw from Tony was Mahomes basically saying, I just told him that was his last target. Then we had the whole postseason talk, and he was a healthy scratch, and, hey, I'm not injured. I'm not injured. I could go out there. Then he talks about how I was talking about the Giants he posted on his IG.
Yeah.
It just feels like such a headache for a guy who can't catch the rock. And as you mentioned, even when he does catch the ball, the production has not quite been there.
He must be the all-time best locker room guy, because after that video and after the drops, they're still defending him, and they're still making excuses on why he should be on this team. And so, look...
Are they defending him or themselves?
Yeah, it's part of it, right? In that, no matter who was in their fold, and look, that's the culture you want for a team. You don't want any of these guys throwing their players under the bus, because that's what losing teams do, right?
Sure.
That's what they do in a lot of other places around the NFL. And I mean, look, the temptation is there to do it. But these guys from Veach to Reed to guys like Travis Kelce, who's he's got to be the best teammate of all time, at least in front of the microphone, of anybody out there. And so the Chiefs have that, and so that's a good thing. So we're kind of like, we're complaining right now, but we I kind of get how it goes,
Again,
right?
I get it.
How about this? If all of that talk there translates to him being out there and getting 8 targets in week 1 of next year, and then that's when I'll be like scratching my head, like, what do we do? What are we doing here?
Yeah. Again, it wasn't the fact that they said good things. Yeah. It was the fact they kept going on and on. The positives and the glowing remarks were much more than I expected, and I think that's where I land. But we'll take a break. More Chiefs talk with Mick Schaefer after this. Sports Radio 810 at WHB.
free music there, Dylan?
Yes.
Well done. Way to not get fired.
Yeah. Sterling Holmes,
As
no
of now.
Jason Anderson, Dylan Michaels behind the glass, Mick Schaefer with us. We were talking about our mice stories in the break, which was very entertaining. I don't know if it's like radio entertaining, but I enjoyed listening to you talk about catching mice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like, easy to catch, like with the sticky trays and everything, but there's always more of them. There's always, unless you gotta eventually just hire a professional.
Yeah. I got lucky one time. I had one and it ran into a popcorn bag. Like those bags of popcorn, these microwavable popcorn, ran in. Lucky. I must have had a couple of adult beverages because I know how I'm going to catch this mouse. I don't have anything at my place. I was like, watch. Should go into a popcorn bag. And then I just got behind it after it ran in and just closed it.
Sure.
And it was terrifying because what do you think a mouse does when it's enclosed in a popcorn bag? Didn't move quite as much as I thought. And I just threw the whole entire thing outside. I don't want to.
So the mouse got out and made its way back into your place.
Never saw it
probably.
again. It learned its lesson.
It learned its lesson.
That's all you have to do. It's all about being stern. And I was stern with that mouse.
I eventually got we got a professional to come in. And I was like, I've been using all these sticky traps and all this and the poison, all that I got from Walmart. He was like, buddy, if that stuff worked, I'd be out of a job. I'm like, oh, that's a good point right there. So let me write you a check.
Yeah. Going back to the Chiefs, I thought Brett Veach had a few, again, more interesting tidbits. And this is me reading between the lines here. But I talked to Matt Derrick, and he actually agreed with me. He brought up a lot of deep receivers, a great receiver class. You can go deeper on in the draft. A lot of good receivers. He said good defensive line depth later in the draft, right? But he goes, offensive line is good early and then tails off. My thought process is if the Chiefs are trading up, it's not for a receiver, it's not for a defensive line guy, not for an edge rusher, it's going to be for an offensive tackle. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily breaking news, but when he broke it down that way, and maybe it's because I'm reading between the lines here, and it's what I would want to have happen, that's what I gathered from his conversation to the media today.
That if they trade up, it would be for a tackle.
It's not going to be for a receiver or any other position. It's going to be for a tackle. When I hear receiving class is deep, defensive line depth is good later on in the draft, and the other need they have is offensive tackle, and they go, O-line is good early and then tails off. Sure. That makes me think first round, or if they trade up, it's going to be a tackle. Do you agree, or am I reading too much into this?
Here's the deal. Once you do enough of these drafts, you'll realize what makes so much sense in the week where we are now leading up to the draft, and it's so obvious. Never happens. It never happens, and they always take a D lineman. It's always
Tyson Jackson.
I mean, every
Glenn
year,
Dorsey.
I mean, the wide receivers have been in the top 2 of what people think they should do and go get. And how often have they taken a wide receiver as their first pick? I can't think of too many times. I mean, Sylvester Morse was a long time ago.
John Baldwin.
Yeah, that was a long time ago as well. It seems like they always default to the defensive line. So that's what I always tell my kids, hey, we're going to get a receiver. I'm like, yeah, maybe, but they'll get a D lineman. They'll get a D line.
Actually, it was hilarious. We did a mock draft, and I never do mock drafts because I was like, let's do one live. So that way
I was listening
can't.
to that, yeah.
I went with Newton.
We apologize for that.
Yeah, no,
I went D line. Yeah.
I knew some of the names in the first round, and then after that, I didn't.
That's why I sped through 4th through 7th, and that's why Dylan and I ended up arguing instead, because it was more fun to argue with him, even though we found out we're on the same page.
If you would have brought up anybody in rounds 4 through 7 to me, I'm like, yes, absolutely. That person from that school sounds great at that position.
What we should have done, Dylan, and now I'm kicking myself, I should have done, is this a real player? Or is this a made-up name from like rounds 5 on? That'd be really good.
Next week.
Now we still have time, right?
Got time.
No, we don't. Oh, we can do it on Monday or Wednesday.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we got next week.
Don't do any research.
Back in the day when I was slumming it on the Saturday show, Saturday morning, Sunday mornings. Back in the day, we used to play a game. Josh was behind the glass. We played a game called Mixed Childhood Friend. And so basically say that like the Phillies were coming to town. Nobody knew any Phillies outside of like one or two dudes. I would say, okay, is this guy a Philadelphia Philly or one of Mick's childhood friends? And it was hard. A lot of people, Josh, because that's who we played with, got him wrong a lot.
Well, if there's one guy that knows a lot of baseball players, it would be Briscoe.
That's what I would pigeonhole him as.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'd
absolutely.
say
but it
there's
would be
one
everybody.
sport-
We would just football teams, UFC fighters, anybody, and usually it was, you're batting below 500.
Yeah, you're getting me.
But then
with
I'm from a
UFC.
town. I'm from a town of 1,000 people, so I ran out of friends. So the game ended at that point.
Mm.
There's
Was
only
it-
so many.
Well, I would assume 1,000, but
No, I wasn't friends with everybody. There was train tracks there.
About 12.
The other side of the tracks.
about 12 friends, maybe.
Yeah,
Is that
but
pushing it?
between
Or
12 and
It,
1,000.
it
yeah.
lasted about 2 minutes. It lasted. It was very quick, wasn't it? Yeah.
What, my childhood or the game?
The game, because
Yes, yeah.
We'll take a break. Come back. Cuts up next on the Zone at Sports Radio 810 WHB. with us. You can follow me on the X at HomestretchKC. There was a massive album drop.
Yeah.
Massive, Mick.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam. Yeah, it was Pearl Jam. Dark Matter by Pearl Jam.
So I was listening to that last night and this morning. My daughter was listening to Taylor Swift's album drop. So it was a lot like Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
It's Taylor Jam. Taylor Jam.
Taylor Jam. Pearl Swift.
Pearl, that can work.
That could work.
Workshop
Well,
these.
You put Pearl first because
it's the best.
And they're earlier. Like Pearl Jam came
were.
before Taylor, so that way you didn't have to
They were like
rile anyone up.
Like the year Taylor was born is like one of their big years, kind of moving on up.
Yeah.
1989.
I like Pearl Jam. I was more of a Alice in Chains guy myself. More of a Soundgarden man of that grunge era.
We'll allow it.
Yeah.
My buddy says there's only 4 true grunge bands.
Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
And then the
All
fifth
out
one.
of
Yeah.
Seattle.
Those are the main 4.
Yeah.
I think the only one I'll entertain.
Mudhoney?
Close. Stone Temple Pilots. I don't know if you can consider them. They're almost at the
that around a
tail.
lot of Pearl Jam fans. Because
I get it.
They're not from Seattle, though, right? Yeah. No, I love STP. But yeah, it's they're Eddie's from California, but the core of the band of Pearl Jam is from Seattle.
Yeah. If I ever sang karaoke, that's what I would go to is Eddie Vedder Even Flow, because I feel like I can't really sing, and this is not a knock. I love Pearl Jam, but you can kind of get that goat sound.
Picture,
that I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to show you up of course.
I would sing Yellow Ledbetter because it's all just a bunch of mumbling. And I would love to see the words to it. Like, what are the words, actually? Which I've looked up.
It's like when you listen to The Police or Sting, and you only understand the last 3 words.
Right, yeah.
And you have no idea what he's saying. And you're just like, oh, brand new day. It's a brand new day.
Ledbetter, that's the quintessential, 90s, just kind of moaning and not really enunciating any of the words. So.
No. Well, why would you enunciate?
No need to.
No need
it's
to.
Not cool back then.
No, it was not. But you could understand Lane Staley and Alice in Chains.
Absolutely. You
because
could,
I think
yes.
you only said a certain amount of words.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the lyrics to Rooster, there's 12. There's 12 words. And you're like, wow, that's a 4.5 minute long song.
Yeah.
How'd you get 12 words in? That's all he needs.
That's all. Man in the Box.
Yeah. Wood, Angry Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Nutshell, I think, has 9.
That's it.
I don't know, probably a little bit more, but it's close. I'm not even being that hyperbolic right now. All right, Royals, they're at home against Baltimore. Second time against the Orioles. Alec Marsh on the
There are
mound.
like 6 teams in Major League Baseball now.
Apparently,
They keep playing
because
the
the same
teams over and
teams
over again.
They play Baltimore twice in a span of 9 days
White
too.
Sox,
Because
too.
why would you not spread that one out?
Sure, the Twins are coming up again.
Yeah. Alec Marsh 2-0, 4.32 ERA. He's been solid so far. Again, we're laughing Cole Reagans. They don't when Cole's on the mound, the offense is like, no, we don't want to perform. But you want to get the offense going. They're in a slump. You know what you do? Throw Alec Marsh out there because the offense goes, oh, it's Marsh.
Yeah.
We're scoring 9.
Yeah, no, poor Cole Reagans. He's a true ace because he's getting no run support.
Dean Kramer on the mound for the Orioles, 0-1, 4.96 ERA. He's a solid guy. You know, we did the ZOUs.
Mm-hmm.
I took the under on Cole Reagans for the exact reason. He's going to have the best ERA, and he's going to get 8 wins.
Which I think his ERA is great, but I think he's third best, right? Well, Singer gave up a couple runs. At one time, Singer was 0.98 last week, and then you had Lugo, which I believe is under 1 as well. I mean, it's been great so far, the starting pitching. And so 12-7 is great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it could easily be 14-5, or they could have 2 or 3 more wins than what they have now based on the starting pitching.
I would agree, but the one pushback I have is we always talk about the games that they
sure,
and we
they
never
came
talk
back in
about the one
8th
that
last
Salvi
week.
hit.
Yeah.
Cole Reagans does have a 1.93, Singer 1.54, Lugo 1.05, Waka 3.75, and then Alec Marsh 4.32.
Waka, the failure of the 5 so far.
Yeah.
And he's in the 3s.
He's actually he's trending up right now, baby.
Yeah. No, they've been great. Marsh has been great as a 5th starter. Are you kidding me? That 4 ERA as a 5th starter? Sign me up.
Still waiting to hear the move after you saw Nick Lofton sitting down to AAA.
Yeah,
It's going to be Michael Massey. Michael Massey. But again, is it going to be Drew Waters? Is Drew Waters getting the call
He was
up?
out of the lineup too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
My opinion is I hope so. I've been a Drew Waters
There'd be
guy
one
for a
less
long
pitcher
time.
than they've had.
Or Isbell gets sent down if they're going cutthroat with it. Or is there a phantom IL stint for a player
Yeah.
who's scuffling? Could be.
I think Massey at least.
Massey at least.
He's been killing it. Get those at-bats up here in the big leagues.
All right, Mick.
Yep.
Guess what it's time for?
To end the show?
Well, with cuts.
More yard work?
Yeah.
Oh, it's time for cuts?
No, it's
do you
not
know
time
how
for cuts.
cuts
I
work, man?
lied.
The
Show's
show's
over.
over.
Program next.